A simple quick-draw slash, yet it left the legendary sword saint completely speechless. To the naked eye, Ronan swung just once. In reality, he'd already landed 3 lethal blows. He even slowed the final strike, mocking the elite academy professors who couldn't keep up. That blatant disrespect ignited the sword saint's fury. She demanded to know who taught him. But Ronan had no master. His blade was forged through 1,000 blood-soaked battles. And the only reason he was standing here now was a desperate kiss from a woman. It all started when 3 godlike 4-winged giants descended to tear the world apart. Within a week, half the empire was reduced to rubble. Nothing could stop their path. Ronan's entire unit was slaughtered. Pushed beyond his human limits, he stood as the survivor. He managed to fell the final beast, but his own life force was flickering out. Standing amidst the carnage, Ronan felt pure despair. Then a chilling voice cut the silence. "I am Ahat. I never imagined a human could possess such monstrous power," the giant whispered. Ronan spun around, realizing the words came from the very monster he thought was dead. He crushed its face under his boot. "You turned my home into a graveyard. Stay dead." A cold grin touched his lips. "Your brothers are gone. One burned, the other sealed away." He wanted to bait the monster, but the giant didn't even flinch at the news. "Powerful human, your words are hollow. The truth is far more absolute than your victory. We share one mind. I know how they died, and I know your allies were annihilated. There is no one left to protect this land. Soon your world will drown in starlight." Before the creature could finish, Ronan's blade severed its head in one clean, violent motion. He began to wander the ruins, wanting one last look at the world before dying. Through the haze of pain, a faint cry reached his ears. Dragging his broken body, he moved. He couldn't believe his eyes. General Adishan was still breathing, clinging to life among the dead. For the first time, a small flicker of peace touched Ronan's shattered heart. She didn't ask about victory. Hearing the last giant was dead brought her final relief. "Thank you, Private Ronan. Truly." Ronan looked at her and made one final humble request. "If you're grateful, bury my brothers with honor. Don't let my unit be forgotten. They fought like demons. They deserve a hero's burial, not to be discarded like trash." The general sighed, admitting her own life was fading. "You'll have to handle that yourself." Ronan erupted into a violent cough. "You overrate me. I'm living on borrowed seconds. It's a shame. There were still so many things I never got to experience." She looked at him with fading eyes. "If you could live again, what would you do?" A spark lit his gaze. "I'd enroll in the academy. It was my sister's last wish. But that dream dies with me. I guess I'll be seeing my family again soon." Suddenly, the clouds parted. Sunlight pierced the gloom, but it brought no hope. Their blood ran cold. Hovering in the heavens was an immense 8-winged monstrosity. The 4-winged giants were just the beginning. The real nightmare had finally descended. The 8-winged king arrived, followed by an endless legion of followers. The end was here. Adishan's eyes went hollow. This was her 3rd war against them, and the end was hopeless. But beside her, Ronan gripped his sword. His resolve was a physical force, sharp and unwavering. He told her to cast levitation. He was going up for one last suicide charge. Even facing a god, Ronan wouldn't kneel. Suddenly, she made a desperate final decision. She pulled him into a kiss, forcing a mystical bead down his throat. "This rewinds time. I used it thrice, to rise from a seamstress to general. This last chance is yours. You're the key to stopping the end. Go and rewrite our destiny, Ronan. If our paths cross once more, just tell me to be a simple tailor." As Ronan's vision finally cleared, he stood in the heart of his childhood village. He stared at the nostalgic sights, his mind reeling from the impossible reality. The general wasn't lying. A whole decade remained before the giants would descend and bring the world to its knees. Could he change fate alone? Then a realization struck him like a bolt. If this was real, his sister was still alive. He snatched up a fallen branch and sprinted toward his house. Suddenly, a group of neighborhood punks caught his eye. Ronan froze in shock. The victim wasn't dangling from a noose. Someone was using high-level mana to levitate the boy. He couldn't wrap his head around it. Such precise control was a rarity even among elite soldiers on the front lines. A genius-level talent hidden in a dusty, forgotten village. Who here could wield such sophisticated telekinesis? The blonde leader sneered, barking at the floating kid to hand over every last scrap of coin he had. The boy sobbed that his savings were spent on his sick mother's medicine. That answer only fueled the thug's mindless fury. He snarled an order to his mage lackey, demanding the victim be hoisted even higher into the sky. But the young mage Asher hesitated, his kind soul clearly recoiling. Before he could even react to the command, Ronan delivered a sharp strike to his skull with the branch. "Drop him now, or his blood is on your hands." Panicked, Asher instantly grounded the child. However, the hulking blonde leader wasn't about to let this slide. "You listen to him over me," the thug roared. "Am I a joke to you?" Ignoring the trash, Ronan yanked Asher aside. "Forget this loser. Where did you master such advanced telekinesis?" Stuttering, Asher admitted he was entirely self-taught. using a cheap manual from a random peddler. Ronan was floored. Reaching this tier through solo study was unheard of. This kid was a diamond in the rough. Ronan knew Asher would be a vital weapon against the coming giants. Suddenly, the enraged thug unsheathed his blade. With a wild cry, he swung the cold steel right at Ronan's neck. Ronan's battle-hardened eyes saw every flaw. The swing packed weight, but the technique was utter garbage. With a casual step, Ronan ghosted past the blade. The thug's confidence wavered, a seed of fear taking root. He chalked it up to a fluke. Pure luck, kid. Now crawl at my feet and start begging for mercy. Maybe I will only take one arm if you cry hard enough. And do not worry, I will take real good care of that gorgeous sister of yours. I have been dying to get my hands on her. Before he could finish his filth, a severed ear hit the dust. Ronan's rage hit the boiling point. His sister was his sanctuary, the one line no man crossed. He would erase anyone who dared breathe her name. The other thugs trembled. He moved like a god with just a wooden stick. That branch carried the lethal weight of a master's blade. Terrified, the punks emptied their pockets and compensated the victim. They fled like beaten dogs. Ronan turned to Asher, commanding him to meet at this exact spot in 3 days. Ghost me and I will hunt you down, he warned. With that, Ronan finally approached the threshold of his old home. At the entrance, his feet turned to lead. The warrior who faced demons was now too afraid to face his own kin. Guilt gnawed at his soul. In his past life, he had abandoned her without a goodbye, leaving only regret behind. He never saw her face again after that day. Stepping inside, his voice trembled as he whispered, "I am home." He offered her a bouquet of her favorite blooms. Tears welled in her eyes. She never expected such a tender gesture from her usually prickly little brother. This was a miracle she had not dared to dream of. The arrogant brat she knew had matured into a thoughtful man. Beaming, she offered to cook up an absolute feast for him. Ronan stared at the massive mountain of food already prepared. 18 plates and a soup. He frantically tried to stop her. Once they finished, Ronan dropped the bombshell he was heading to the academy. Her face instantly lit up with pure radiance. She begged him to confirm he was not joking. Getting Ronan a proper education had been her lifelong obsession. It was her greatest wish. Seeing his serious nod, she practically danced over to a hidden corner of their small hut. After digging through old boxes, she hauled out a massive clay jar overflowing with sparkling gold coins. Ronan's jaw dropped. Where did she get a small fortune? With a proud smirk and hands on her hips, she explained she had been scrimping for years. "I saved every penny so you could leave the second you were ready." Ronan gave a bittersweet smile, knowing this would not even cover the entrance fee. He told her to keep her savings. He was targeting the Empire's crown jewel, the Royal Filion Academy. It boasted the continent's greatest masters and was funded by the Empire's infinite wealth. With royal backing, Filion maintained the most brutal elite admission standards in the land. The tuition was total highway robbery. Plus, General Adeshan had personally ordered them to attend this academy. 3 days later, Ronan reached the rendezvous point to meet up with Asher. Ronan skipped the pleasantries, demanding they run some high-stakes power tests immediately. He ordered Asher to blast him with full-throttle telekinesis. It was time to find his breaking point. Asher's nerves hit the ceiling, but Ronan's intense pressure left him with zero room to refuse. He unleashed his mental arts, and once the force landed, Ronan was legitimately shook. This kid was a total dark horse. His stability and elevation control were still messy, but the raw sensation, it felt exactly like the carnage of the final battle back then. Back in the day, it took multiple mages just to lift him to giant-slaying height. Ronan was hyped. Elite mages are rare, but a natural-born telekinetic, that's a literal cheat code. He'd secured a god-tier start. Meanwhile, Asher was collapsing, his hands twitching from the mental strain. Seeing him flag, Ronan pushed him to endure. There was one final mystery he needed to verify. Suddenly, Ronan drew his steel and sliced clean through the telekinetic force, leaving Asher horrified. He literally cut through magic. Asher stared in disbelief. Shredding a spell was supposed to be impossible. Ronan offered no answers, simply calling it one of his many secret techniques. In truth, even Ronan was baffled. His blade did not just negate magic. It wounded Ahayut, the colossus that even the Sword Saint could not scratch. Unlocking that mystery was his ultimate mission in this life, but for now he had bigger fish to fry. He tossed a bag to Asher. "Move it. We finish this by sunrise, or Filion stays a dream." Asher froze. "Wait, did I hear that right? We are actually talking about Filion Academy. The place for the Empire's elites," Ronan shrugged. "You out," Asher shook his head wildly. "You are a sword prodigy, you will breeze in. But me, I am just a talentless nobody." Ronan did not sugarcoat it. "You really want to rot in this gutter and waste your life? Are you going to throw away your potential just to keep bowing down to local street trash? A real man evolves once he faces his flaws. Joining Filion is our perfect first step. Otherwise, you will regret this forever." Those words hit Asher like a spiritual awakening. For the first time, someone cared about his future. He agreed, and Ronan flashed a devious smirk. Everything was falling into place. Soon Ronan led him to a camp of sleeping goblins. These were Luna goblins, a variant species obsessed with hoarding every gold coin they could find. They specialized in raiding wealthy caravans, piling their loot high for full moon celebrations. Ronan's target, their massive glittering stash of stolen treasure. Just use your telekinesis to stealthily vacuum that loot into the bag. Simple, right? Asher was terrified. If they wake up, we are toast. Can we please just rethink this? Ronan snapped. When are you going to drop that cowardly act and man up? To enter Philion, we need two things: fat stacks of cash and real combat experience. This job handles both. After Ronan's aggressive pep talk, Asher finally activated his magic. Trembling with fear, he successfully siphoned every last coin from the goblin horde. Just like that, their tuition crisis vanished. Watching Asher buzz with newfound excitement, Ronan did not hold back the praise. The kid adapted to real danger way faster than expected. He had truly found a diamond in the rough, but as they packed up to bounce, a thunderous roar ripped through the night. Ronan knew instantly trouble had arrived. His luck was still garbage. Predictably, every goblin in camp was jolted awake by the noise. The moment they opened their eyes, they looked straight at their empty treasure chests. Before they could escape, a murderous mob spotted them. Enraged, the goblins gripped their weapons. They lunged forward with killing intent. Asher hit the dirt, paralyzed by pure dread. Ronan, what's the plan? Should we ditch the loot and bolt? Asher pleaded. Ronan didn't even blink. He simply shifted his eyes downward, analyzing the blade he'd snatched from that blonde punk, feeling the steel's balance and grit. He calculated it had 15 strikes left. He scanned the horizon. At least 30 goblins were closing in. A smirk played on Ronan's lips. 15's plenty. He unsheathed the steel and charged into the fray. One swing birthed a triple flash of death. He blurred through the horde like a jagged bolt of lightning, and within seconds 30 monsters lay slaughtered. Asher stood there, completely floored by the absolute carnage, frozen in disbelief. Meanwhile, Ronan just cracked his neck and sighed, his mind wandering elsewhere. As he cursed his pathetic, weak physique, he needed some serious gains once he hit home. Suddenly, a stray arrow hissed toward Asher's back. Ronan's god-tier reflexes kicked in, snatching the shaft mid-air. With ease, two shadows slithered out from the brush, claiming they'd confused the boys for wild game, but their faces lacked even a shred of remorse. Instead, they were staring hungrily at the loot bags. Ronan's disgust was palpable. Your acting is mid. Now tell me, who are you clowns, really? Caught in their lie, the thugs hesitated before one stepped out wearing a slimy fake grin and began his introduction. But mid-sentence, he lunged, a hidden dagger flashing toward Ronan's throat. We're Caribou, wrong choice, kid. But Ronan parried the strike like it was nothing but a breeze. Recognition sparked pure fury in Ronan's eyes. So you're the trash from that bottom-tier gang. Panicking, the second thug charged at Ronan, foolishly ignoring Asher, standing right next to him. Instantly, Asher paralyzed the attacker with a telekinetic grip. Ronan couldn't help but feel a surge of pride. He knew he'd picked a winner. Ronan then ripped the dagger from the first man's desperate grasp, unleashing a whirlwind of steel. Before the scum could scream, his body was already being torn apart, into unrecognizable ribbons. Watching the slaughter, a cold shiver gripped Asher. Was that much overkill really necessary? Ronan didn't even flinch. These bastards came here with murder on their minds. Why show mercy, especially to Caribou scum? That gang leaves nothing but fire and corpses behind. Sparing them would be the actual sin. Suddenly, the bags the thieves were hauling began to thrash wildly. Just then, the thieves' cargo began thrashing violently. Intrigued, Ronan quickly unraveled the restraints. A feathered blur erupted from the bag. It was a stunning blue bird, with oddly intelligent eyes. Asher was instantly smitten by the cute creature. However, Ronan spotted a heavy chain binding its leg. It was a Caribou specialty, an anti-magic shackle designed to suppress the power of rare mythical beasts. Suddenly, a voice echoed from the creature. Asher nearly jumped out of his skin. It speaks. Ronan just scoffed. It's obviously long-distance comms magic. We're talking to its owner, Genius. Greetings, I am Baron, a scholar of mythical species. I'm also this dream bird's caretaker. Ophi vanished last night and I've been frantic. I know this is sudden, but who am I speaking with? Ronan gave him a quick rundown of the situation before casually shattering the shackle with a single precise strike. Overwhelmed with gratitude, the bird hovered before Ronan, shaking its tail feathers frantically. Baron quickly clarified, it wants you to take one of its feathers. Dreambird feathers act as a living compass, always pointing toward the original owner. Ophi clearly vibed with you. Use that feather to find me once you reach the capital. I'll repay my debt then. With that, Ophi streaked toward the capital like a heat-seeking missile. Its insane speed even caught Ronan off guard. It wasn't until Asher nudged him that he realized Ophi had left a parting gift in his palm. By dawn the next day, the duo hauled their loot to the local marketplace. After a thorough inspection of the gear, a merchant offered 20 gold coins for the necklace. Ronan finally let out a satisfied smirk. Unlike the low-life scammers he'd dealt with before, this trade was actually legit. With the loot sold, they finally secured the massive stack of cash needed for Filian's crazy tuition fees. Ronan produced a strange egg-shaped artifact, asking the merchant to identify the mysterious gift left by the dream bird. Honestly, when the bird first dropped it, Ronan thought it was just a pile of monster droppings. He tossed it away in disgust, only to watch the object shatter a massive boulder while remaining completely flawless. Yet even with all his travels, the veteran merchant just scratched his head, totally clueless about its origin. With a heavy sigh, Ronan realized the truth would have to wait until they reached the imperial capital. He needed to ask Baron in person. Afterward, Ronan inquired if there were any guides on the legendary Filion Academy. The merchant's face lit up instantly. What a coincidence, my own daughter is prepping for Filion's entrance exams too. With a proud grin, he turned toward the market entrance and shouted for his daughter to join them. Before long, a girl named Maria appeared, looking totally puzzled. But the second Ronan heard her name, his entire body went rigid. He marched up to her, eyes locked. "You're really Maria Sane, aren't you?" Maria just blinked. She nodded slowly, asking how he knew her name. But Ronan was lost in a deep, swirling memory. In his past life, the Maria he remembered was a fierce, valiant warrior, with the rugged energy of a man. Driven by instinct, Ronan leaned in close and whispered, "Yo, are you actually a dude in disguise?" Maria froze, looking down at her very feminine figure, wondering if this guy was blind or just completely insane. As Ronan stood there, lost in thought, a sudden violent blur of movement flashed toward his face. A thunderous slap echoed as Maria struck him, but instead of getting angry, Ronan felt a spark of recognition. That insane power. There was no doubt now. This fiery girl in front of him was definitely the Maria he knew. Years ago, she had served as a legendary supply officer, while Ronan was a soldier in the Elrain Corps. She was bold, direct, and respected by everyone, leaving a permanent mark on Ronan's soul. But she had one infamous quirk. Anytime the guys started making crude locker room jokes, she'd lose it on the spot and slap every single person involved. That mystery had bothered Ronan for ages. He'd always planned to ask her why she acted that way, but unfortunately, she died far too soon in his first life. To think the mystery that haunted him for years had such a simple answer, Ronan couldn't help but chuckle. However, that small laugh was the final straw for Maria. "You think this is a joke, you little brat?" With a scream of rage, she lunged at him again, but this time Ronan wasn't playing around. He shut her down with a swift fist to the head. "All right, you've seriously gone too far now. I let you land one free hit, but you're pushing your luck." But instead of calming her down, Maria's fury only intensified as she thought about it. She suddenly lunged forward with a vicious strike, slamming her forehead into Ronan's chin in a brutal headbutt. "Yeah, I hit you. What are you going to do about it?" That was it. Ronan stopped holding back, and the two of them descended into a full-blown, chaotic brawl. The onlookers could only watch in sheer horror before finally snapping out of it to intervene. "Stop, break it up, both of you." It took everything they had to finally pull the High apart. Asher stood there completely stunned. Just moments ago they were ready for blood, and now they were sitting together calmly discussing business. Ronan pulled out his gear, 3 swords and a staff. He asked Maria to evaluate the quality, but she just looked puzzled. "Why do you need 3 swords anyway?" Ronan explained that he breaks blades constantly in the heat of battle, so he always carries plenty of spares. Maria inspected the black iron blade. "These are all decent, but this black iron sword is top tier. Famous knights would kill for this." Then she turned her attention toward Asher. "And you must be a rare mage if you're carrying this staff right. What kind of magic do you use?" Asher's face lit up with pride as he shyly admitted his talent was telekinesis magic. Maria's eyes widened. "Telekinesis. If you play your cards right, you're basically a lock for a full scholarship." "Asher is a sure thing, but what about you, Ronan? What are you showing for the skills exam?" Ronan blinked. Maria explained that if he wanted in, he would need to pass both a written test and a practical demonstration. The skills exam meant proving his worth in front of the academy's elite professors. Usually nobles show off secret family techniques while martial applicants try to dazzle everyone with their magic. Ronan's brow furrowed. How could anyone reach this level? Wielding mana so young, Maria gasped, her eyes nearly popping. Standard combat mana. Mastering it for battle is the absolute basics. Wait, don't tell me you're clueless about mana sensing. Ronan looked utterly baffled. Isn't sensing mana just like aura? Maria's brain literally short-circuited. It was like teaching quantum physics to a toddler. Groaning, Maria snatched up Ronan's twin blades. She was initiating a brutal crash course. Ronan groaned. Those were his only 3 precious swords. A single scratch would break his heart. Maria finally caved, swearing to pay triple if they snapped. But first, she had to drill the basics. Listen up, rookie. Mana is the universe's ultimate fuel. It flows everywhere, invisible like oxygen, but pure energy. But not everyone is chosen. To bend mana, you first have to perceive it. Detecting your internal reservoir is called mana sensing. How long that takes, it's all relative. It depends on your hustle and raw talent. Usually, though, most normies take a full year to feel the spark. But Philion hopefuls, they must transcend that weaponizing mana with their own unique flair. Only then can they dream of Philion. But you, Ronan, you're blind to mana. You can't distinguish mana from aura, getting in pure delusion. Look, technically speaking, aura is mana's cousin, but they're light years apart. Even the blessed prodigies struggle. It takes a decade of blood and sweat to master aura. Ronan absorbed the info. The gears finally turned. He remembered facing those types on the front lines. Those self-proclaimed aura users. Who knew they were big deals? They were annoying pests, sure. But ultimately, they all kissed his steel. Maria snapped him back. Enough lecture time. Time for a live demo. In a flash, Maria ignited her combat arts. She lunged like a lightning bolt. Ronan's pulse spiked at her insane velocity. Yet, he parried her blitz effortlessly. With a lazy flick of his wrist, he sent her reeling. Maria froze. She'd planned a one-shot knockout. There was no way a mana-clueless kid could stand a chance. He wasn't applicant material. Better he face a reality check now than fail publicly. But the tables turned. She was the one being absolutely crushed by him. And he didn't even have mana. Catching her off guard, Ronan's counter hit sent her flying back meters. You've got kick. Pure sword skill. You're a natural. Just fix your balance and you'll be cracked. He walked off, dropping a reminder about their wager. Don't forget my swords. Absolute disrespect. Maria's temper flared. You think you actually won this, punk? Before she could talk more, smack, her blade disintegrated into a million pieces. She watched his retreating back, stunned into silence. Who is this monster? Fast forward to morning. Ronan scored cash for a fresh arsenal and a stack of leaked exam questions, plus Maria's personal cheat sheets for the duo. Apparently, Maria intended to carry them, but her caravan had business in the next city. Duty called. She had to bounce early. From that point on, Ronan grinded the books by day and went beast mode at night. He hunted monsters to regain his peak physique. Just like that, 30 days evaporated. Finally, Ronan and Asher stood before the legendary Philion Academy. Asher's jaw hit the floor at the sight of that massive palatial estate. He couldn't stop geeking out. Ronan, however, remained cool and calculating. He should be here right now. Maybe their paths would cross during the trials. Asher nudged him. Yo, you still got that dreambird feather. Ronan meant to find Baron later, but as he reached for the feather, the device rattled with sudden intensity, locking onto the structure standing right before them. Inside, Baron reached for the window, craving a breath of air, unaware of the intruders outside. Suddenly, a face materialized inches from his own. The jump scare sent shockwaves through the room. Terror gripped both the man and his bird, as Baron instinctively shielded the dream bird. Who goes there? Are you more vultures hunting, Ophi? Then Ronan raised the sacred feather. Light glinted off the plume, and Baron's hostility vanished. My saviors, you finally arrived. Ronan stood stunned. The Dreambird's owner was no ordinary man, but a legendary lion beastman. He was a renowned professor at Philion Academy. After introductions, Baron realized their true purpose. So you're both aspiring students. Baron sighed, a look of regret washing over his regal face. Had I known, I'd have granted you my recommendation. But don't fret if you fail the trial. I have other ways to help. Ronan cut him off, sensing a bad omen in those words. He presented the mysterious egg Ophi had left behind, explaining her sudden departure before the handoff. As Baron cradled the egg, his eyes welled with profound emotion, his hands trembling with reverence. Ronan watched bewildered. Was a simple bird egg really worth this much drama? He couldn't grasp it. Baron's voice turned grave. This is no mere egg, it's a dreambird's legacy of infinite possibilities. Ronan just shrugged. It's an egg, right? What else comes out besides a bird? He was unimpressed. Baron shook his head. These eggs are miracles of nature, absorbing the raw essence of their surroundings. They feast on the mana of the land or the beings they touch. The environment dictates birth. An egg forged in volcanic depths might hatch a phoenix wreathed in eternal scorching flames. Born near a den of beasts, it could emerge as a chimera inheriting the traits of monsters. What hatches might not even have wings. You can usually sense its future form through leaking mana. But this egg, it's an anomaly. It pulses with a chaotic mixture of 1,000 different magics. The energies within churn like a raging furnace. Even I can't predict what legendary creature lies inside. Ronan was floored. He never imagined such a small object could hold such terrifying cosmic mystery. Now he understood why these creatures were myths. After a heavy silence, Baron spoke again. He made a shocking request, wanting to entrust the egg to Ronan. Ronan's eyes widened in disbelief. Wait, isn't this priceless? He asked. Baron didn't hesitate, nodding with a solemn expression. It's beyond gold. A dream bird lays only one egg. But Ophi chose you. She sensed your soul. I must honor my friend's final wish and respect her mysterious choice. Keep it safe, he pleaded. Intrigued by the egg's destiny, Ronan accepted the responsibility on the spot. As Ronan prepared to depart, Baron raised a hand. I cannot let my benefactors leave empty-handed. Since the egg is yours now, I have the perfect treasure to aid its mysterious growth. He produced an ancient scroll, revealing a secret location that would act as a catalyst for growth. Armed with the scroll, Ronan marched toward the martial arena. 5 elite proctors awaited his arrival. At the center sat the Academy's headmaster, the legendary Grand Mage Kratatet, radiating pure power. Beside him sat the former sword Saint Nibirger, her sharp gaze cutting through the air like steel. The sheer weight of their presence was suffocating. The air thickened with their combined authority. Ronan took a deep breath, steadying his nerves, before bowing deeply to the titans of martial arts. The rules were simple. Your opponent is this magical combat doll. Show us your ultimate technique. 1 strike, they commanded. That is all it takes to judge your worthiness as a warrior. Ronan unsheathed his blade with calm precision. I won't show anything flashy, just a single slash. 2 professors erupted in mocking laughter. They had seen countless arrogant fools make similar claims before. To them, his words were a joke. They didn't realize the monstrous potential hidden behind his statement. This doll's armor could withstand an aura blade boasting godlike self-regeneration capabilities. Even the genius Sherry Pan only managed to scratch. Ronan, however, was about to shatter reality. The headmaster held his breath, fearing Ronan might crumble under the crushing pressure. While the professors sneered, the headmaster's pupils suddenly dilated in total shock. How could a kid radiate such insane presence? Ronan lunged with explosive power. His blade blurred through the air. 1 clean stroke, then a respectful bow. I'm finished. The words barely landed before the professors resumed their toxic taunting. Pathetic, he just did a basic swing. They struggled to give him a score. The blonde professor turned for an opinion only to find the headmaster frozen in awe, paralyzed by disbelief, while Nia Berger suddenly vaulted onto the judge's platform. She blitzed toward Ronan. In a heartbeat, her cold blade was pressed against his throat. Who was your master? Nia's chest heaved with fury as her voice trembled. She was barely restraining her rage. Ronan stood there, looking completely lost and confused. I have no clue what you mean. Nia immediately snapped back with another question. Your skills are god tier, Ronan admitted. You struck 3 times before even drawing fully. Hearing that, Nia's anger cooled. Exactly. Just like the move you performed earlier. Her tone turned icy. But you arrogantly slowed down that final horizontal strike. Did you think we wouldn't spot your trick? This academy isn't a playground. Ronan felt awkward. He hadn't slowed down to disrespect the high-ranking professors. He simply feared the cheap sword would shatter under his full, overwhelming strength. It was his very last blade. Seeing Nia's fury, he decided to keep quiet. The excuse sounded totally fake anyway. The headmaster stood there speechless and awkward. The mocking professors looked away, realizing they hadn't even seen the boy's movement. After a tense silence, Nia sheathed her sword and walked back to her seat. Thinking it was over, Ronan flinched as Nia turned back with a sharp glare. I will personally train you. The headmaster watched, stunned by her sudden declaration. It was official. She had just claimed this boy as her own personal disciple. I'll be serious too. Great work, Ronan, but there is one final question. There's no wrong answer. What do you truly hope to master at Filion? Ronan paused for 2 seconds as dark memories flashed through his mind. With burning resolve, he answered, I want to learn how to live without regrets. The headmaster roared with laughter. That's a tough lesson even I can't teach. The blonde professor demanded an explanation, but the headmaster simply pointed ahead. He focused his gaze on the combat doll standing in the distance. Suddenly, a massive crack appeared, and the doll exploded, split perfectly in half. The professors were shook. No student had ever dealt that level of destruction. Outside, Ronan was already replaying Nia's godlike swordsmanship in his head. Her aura left a mark. Even in his past life, he wouldn't have won. He thought he was a veteran, but now he realized his journey had just begun. Ronan smirked. The general was right to send him to this elite academy. Confidence surging, he marched toward the final hall for the written examination. He had spent a grueling month cramming every single detail into his brain. But when the test ended, Ronan's soul basically left his body from despair. I told you to read everything. How did you only finish 30%? Ronan had hyper-focused on the first few books and forgot the entire hidden stack. Maria was speechless. She didn't think such a talented guy could be this dense. Seeing his devastated face, she sighed and tried to comfort the broken warrior. Forget the books. The practical exam is where the real glory is. With your beastly strength, you will be just fine. Right then, a colossal magic circle ignited out of thin air. The entire crowd swarmed the area in a frenzy of nerves, desperate to find their names. It did not take long for Maria and Asher to spot theirs. Asher snagged rank 12 in the magic division and even tied for first on the written test. Maria took 9th in the martial division. She also hit rank 9 on the written exam. The two shared an ecstatic victory hug, riding a wave of pure relief that their brutal training had finally bore fruit. Hyped up, Maria spun toward Ronan, dying to see his final rank. But she froze when she saw Ronan standing there with a completely soulless expression. My name is not on the list. Hearing that, they both hit a wall of pure shock. You have got to be capping. Are you sure you looked everywhere? Ronan snapped. that he had already scanned every single pixel on that board dozens of times. But the moment he finished speaking, a massive explosion shattered the silence. This was the Academy's grand flex for the elite top 3 students in each department. The legendary phoenix itself would manifest to declare the winners. With a piercing celestial cry from the glorious phoenix, a roaring fireball streaked directly at Ronan. It detonated right in his face, burning his results into the air in glowing letters. Martial Division Rank 1. Written Exam Rank 5712. Total Department Rank 2. Asher and Maria absolutely lost it, Ronan. You took second place overall just by hard carrying with your combat score. Even Ronan was stunned, silently vibing with the professor's surprisingly sharp judgment. But then a cold realization hit him like a truck. Hold up, if I am number 1 in combat, did I just beat that guy? He is way too petty to let this slide. Before Ronan could vanish into the crowd, a chilling voice cut through the air behind him. So you are the one who snatched first place in the practicals. The person who had arrived was none other than Shuri Pan, a future sword saint and the Empire's most dangerous rising star. Ronan immediately felt a spike of dread and tried to gaslight him, claiming he had the wrong guy. See, Shuri Pan was a competitive monster who could never stomach someone being better than him with a blade. Hearing that, Shuri Pan's expression twisted into a snarl. Why are you lying, Ronan? Just shrugged, playing it cool. Look, just because you say I am first does not make it a fact. If you are serious, then show me some receipts. Shuri Pan let out a dark, icy chuckle. Fine, I will prove it right now. Without warning, his blade screamed through the air like a lightning strike aimed directly at Ronan's face. But Ronan parried the blow effortlessly. There is your proof. No scrub could have reacted to that strike in time. Now show me your true ceiling, Ronan was annoyed. He could not believe this absolute lunatic was still the same as ever. In a heartbeat, he vaulted backward. At the same time, with a violent flick of his wrist, 3 razor-sharp waves of pure sword aura tore through the air at Shuri Pan. Even though the prodigy managed to deflect the onslaught, the sheer destructive force left his fingers trembling with shock. That is my power. You satisfied yet? Ronan figured that would finally be the end of it, but to his surprise, Shuri Pan lunged forward again, blade raised. I will admit your swordsmanship is top tier, but you still have not surpassed me. Show me everything you are hiding. This warm-up is not enough to convince me. Seeing that crazed fire igniting in Shuri Pan's eyes, Ronan felt a massive headache coming on. This guy was such a sweat, exactly why he wanted to avoid him. If this kept escalating, Shuri Pan might actually use aura, and in his current state, Ronan's body could not take that heat. Thinking fast, Ronan turned tail and bolted. Seeing him bail, the broad-shouldered Shuri Pan absolutely lost it. What are you doing? How can a warrior turn his back on a duel? But Ronan ignored the noise and dove straight behind Asher. He shamelessly yanked Asher forward, using him as a human shield. Even Shuri Pan hesitated to strike. Recklessly. You absolute coward. Hiding behind a woman. You are a disgrace to the sword. Ronan only answered with a devious smirk. Man, you really have not changed. You would rather die than break your precious knightly code. Before the words even landed, Ronan balled his fist and buried it directly into Shuri Pan's nose. Oh, and one more secret. Asher's a dude. That bone-shattering blow sent Shuri Pan's world spinning into darkness. By the time his vision cleared, Ronan had already hauled Asher clear across the campus. Suddenly, Filian's security squad stormed onto the scene. The bald captain stopped dead. The second he spotted the battered Shuri Pan. Lord Shuri Pan, we heard reports of a massive brawl. Give us a description. Our squad will have a wanted poster up before you can even blink. Shuri Pan just brushed off the grime. Drop the formalities. I am not standing here as a duke's heir. I am just another candidate today. That duel was fair and square, so there is no need to interfere. I will deal with this myself. Suddenly, his gaze sharpened. A jagged fracture had split the blade in his hand. This was top-tier mithril steel. He knew Ronan was a beast, but he never expected this. Breaking mithril with a common sword was insane. A wild, relieved grin spread across Shuri's face. His eyes blazed with pure obsessive hype. He finally found a rival. Ronan. That name is etched in my mind. At dawn, deep in the Imperial Woods, Ronan scanned his map with absolute laser focus. He mapped out the path while Asher paced nervously. Yo, Ronan, are we actually okay doing this? That guy yesterday is the Grancia heir. Their house is literally one step below the royals. Ronan just shrugged it off. Relax, Asher. Shuri is just a total sword geek, nothing more. He is actually a solid guy with real principles. He is basically the gold standard for nobility. No cap. If he wanted us dead or gone, we would be rotting in a dungeon cell by now. We would be eating prison slop for breakfast. Finally, after hours of trekking, they reached the coordinates. Professor Barron mentioned this spot, the Fainal, the Siam River, a literal hotspot for magical energy. Raw mana from across the world pools here, creating a massive swirling lake of pure mystic power. The sheer overflow turns basic pebbles into top-tier mana stones. It is absolutely ridiculous. Even the weeds here mutate into legendary herbs. The worth of this place, totally off the charts. Everyone wants a piece of this treasure. Even Ronan was stunned that Baron would just hand this over. Trusting them with a gold mine like this was wild. Asher could feel the mana vibrating in the air. His jaw dropped. He had never felt power this heavy or suffocating in his entire life. In this zone, he could probably fire off high-rank spells that were normally way out of his league. Suddenly, Ophi's egg started pulsing with light, vacuuming up mana at a terrifying black hole rate. Wait. Asher's face went pale. Ronan, something is wrong. Baron said this place would be crawling with life. A mana vein this big should be packed with monsters and wildlife. It should be loud, but it is dead silent. Not a single chirp. Asher's observation sent a freezing chill down Ronan's spine. The realization snapped him into combat mode. He lunged to his feet, taking a sharp, deep breath. The metallic scent of blood hit his nose. Great, Ronan sighed. Why is trouble my middle name? Asher, get down, I smell fresh blood. Right on cue, the forest itself seemed to scream. 5 enchanted arrows streaked out from the shadows, aimed straight for their vitals. Ronan's eyes turned to ice. In one fluid blur of steel, all 5 projectiles were sliced clean in half. He recognized those arrowheads instantly. A former squadmate from his past life used these exact ones. They were Caribou originals. Those custom shafts only belonged to one group, the most ruthless poachers around. Only Hound-class killers with over 100 successful hunts could carry these. The ambushers froze. They could not believe their eyes. What the hell? He just swat those arrows away like flies. Before they could blink, Ronan was a blur, closing the gap instantly. Their purple-haired leader snapped into gear. He barked out a hushed command, telling his crew to fan out and flank the target. They were surrounding him. Damn. These hounds were a different breed compared to those low-level scrubs. These pros actually knew how to trap a target. Sensing the danger, Ronan suddenly stopped and yelled, "Hold your fire, I am on your side." The poachers hesitated, their fingers twitching on their bows. "Cut the crap. You think we are stupid?" Ronan leaned into the lie. "I am a Demos branch hound. I am the youngest elite they have ever had." The group lowered their guard, slowly circling back. The leader's eyes narrowed with doubt. "A brat like you, on my level, do not make me laugh." Ronan let out a mocking smirk, his voice dripping with pure disrespect. "Just because you are slow, does not mean I am. If you doubt me, go ask Wild Wolf about the new prodigy." That humiliation was the final straw. The purple-haired thug snapped, lunging forward to hoist Ronan up by his collar. "You looking to die today, kid?" The rest of the crew rushed in to kill the tension. "Chill out, this brat actually knows top-secret intel only we should have. Better run this by the captain first. If he's legit, starting a beef with another branch will be a total disaster." The loud bickering drew the captain over from nearby. "Didn't I order you idiots to stay low and keep watch? What's with the noise?" Wild Wolf's crushing aura surged outward, instantly paralyzing everyone in their tracks. The purple-haired guy scrambled toward his bald leader, frantically relaying every detail of the encounter. The captain's face went cold. "According to the code, the Demi-Ray branch claims this territory. What gives? Why are you here?" Ronan suddenly cracked up, laughing in their faces. "My bad, I honestly wouldn't know, since I'm not actually a Hayate, you see." Before he even finished, Ronan's blade blurred from its scabbard. 4 poachers dropped dead instantly. Horrified, the bald captain lunged for the sword hanging at his hip. Ronan didn't give him a second, closing the gap instantly. A lethal arc of cold steel sliced the atmosphere. The captain's head rolled from his shoulders. Moments later, Ronan casually pulled out a parchment and threw it down. It slid toward the purple-haired survivor. "If you value your life, map out every branch location you know now." Shaking uncontrollably, the man handed over the map. You promised to let me walk away, right? You're a man of your word, right?" Ronan remained silent, choosing to let his actions do the talking. "Psych, I lie through my teeth all the time." But as Ronan turned to leave, something changed. The egg in his satchel suddenly thrashed violently. Before Ronan could check it, Asher's face drained of all color. He pointed a quivering finger toward the distance. The crimson gore pooling around Caribou's slaughtered beasts was moving. The blood defied gravity, rising into the sky. Within seconds, the scattered puddles coalesced into a single mass. A tidal wave of blood surged toward them. Ronan's knuckles whitened as he gripped his hilt for battle. He dropped into a stance, but the egg suddenly tore through the bag and launched itself forward. It dove into the heart of the blood, hungrily feasting on the energy. Ronan watched, absolutely baffled. One thing was for sure, whatever was inside that shell was definitely not from this world. After the blood was drained, dry spiderweb cracks exploded across the egg's surface. Ronan couldn't hide his hype. But as he leaned in, a blunt force smashed right into his nose. Reeling, he looked up to find a weird soot-black furball staring him down. The pair stared at the bizarre little creature in shock, wondering what on earth it actually was. Ronan tentatively extended a finger, and the creature nuzzled against it with surprising affection. Still, his face was throbbing. Ronan grumbled with fake saltiness about his handsome looks being ruined. "You're cute, but that greeting was toxic. Did you really have to start with a headbutt?" Right then, a glowing magic circle materialized over the little furball's head. The spell's light washed over him, instantly healing his face. Ronan was shocked and low-key impressed. Healing magic. Unbelievable. Just as he was naming it Seda, the creature's eyes locked onto something. It bolted like a rocket. Ronan stood there, jaw dropped at the creature's insane speed. Sharp senses for a newborn, Seda was hunting none other than Barlas, the lone survivor. He'd only stepped away for a quick bathroom break, but when he returned, his world had ended. His entire squad was slaughtered. After witnessing the eggs creepy hatching from behind a tree, he bolted. Panic set in as he fled, but a stray root sent him face-planting into the dirt. Seda pounced, hungrily lapping blood from his cuts. Terrorized Barlas started frantically begging for his life. Luckily, Ronan intervened and pulled Seda off, but he didn't look like he wanted to kill Barlas. Instead, he asked with strange concern, "Barlas, you're not hurt too bad, right?" Barlas looked up, trembling. "I'm alive thanks to you, but how the hell do you know my name?" Ronan cut him off, pressing a cold blade against his throat. "That's on a need-to-know basis. I'm just glad you're back." In a past life, Barlas had abandoned Kari Brew to join Ronan's squad. A smirk played on Ronan's lips. "Finally found you, my chatty friend from Kari Brew. Look, I need a favor, but don't get it twisted, I'm not asking." Hearing those words, Barlas completely broke down. He desperately promised anything, if Ronan just spared him. Once Barlas finally calmed his nerves, Ronan escorted Asher back to the magical ley vein. The professor mentioned its spring water was legendary treasure. Ronan bottled some up to test its market price. To his absolute shock, Maria's father offered 20 gold coins per single bottle. Ronan was low-key, screaming with joy inside. At that insane price, he could basically retire early just by selling water. Asher got curious on the way back, asking what he'd even do with that much cash. Second place meant a full ride and a massive yearly scholarship. Ronan paused to reflect. With the ceremony days away, he planned to bring his sister into the city soon. When his sister Ilyar finally arrived, her first instinct was to ask if he'd turned to crime. The carriage Ronan sent for her was just way too luxurious and high-end. He just chuckled and brushed it off, dragging her into every luxury boutique in sight. Ilyar looked at the expensive tags with pure anxiety. "I know you're making bank lately, but this is way too much for just a gift, right?" Ronan didn't care about the price. She had sacrificed everything for him, so now it was her time to glow. She started tearing up. Her little brother was officially a man now. She suddenly ran to the door, waving wildly. "Look at my amazing brother, everyone." After basically clearing out the store, Ronan was ready for a feast, but he froze the second he stepped outside. Shuri Pan was right there. Shuri asked why he took so long. Ronan nearly jumped out of his skin. "What are you doing here? Are you low-key stalking me now?" Or what Shuri claimed, he was just there for a suit fitting. Since they crossed paths, he decided to wait. Ronan wasn't buying it. That is literally stalking. "Don't make me throw hands on my best day yet." Shuri wasn't backing down at all. He gripped his sword hilt tightly. "Bet, let's go." Just as things were about to get violent, Ilyar stepped between them like a shield. "Ronan, didn't I teach you to use your manners?" Cold sweat drenched Ronan's back. "Sis, you've got it all wrong. This guy started it first." Ilyar just glared and wagged her finger. "Oh, so you're too big for my rules now. You mess up and still talk back." After humbling Ronan, she tucked her hair back gracefully. She turned to apologize to Shuri Pan. "I'm so sorry. My brother can be a bit aggressive. But he's got a heart of gold. It's my fault for being too soft on him." Shuri froze. A massive blush hid his face instantly. The heart that only cared about the blade skipped a beat for the first time because of a girl thumping like a drum. Shuri stammered. That Ilyar was fine, and he was the one being reckless. Beaming, Ilyar grabbed his hand. "You're so understanding. I'm glad Ronan has such a great friend." That simple touch made Shuri's brain completely short-circuit. He couldn't even breathe. Panicked, he handed over a gold token. "Sorry for crashing your sibling time. This is my family's official identity crest. It's valid across the whole empire. Take it as an apology. My own sword broke last time, so yours must be trashed too. If you need new steel, hit up the Great Forge. It's at the west end of Workshop Street, with 500 years of history. It's super exclusive, but this token gets you VIP access." After dumping the info, Shuri fled. Meanwhile, Ronan was having an existential crisis. That single token was worth enough to buy a whole city. Was this even the same Shuri? Soon after the grand entrance ceremony finally kicked off, Headmaster Creditet took the stage shouting, "Welcome geniuses of the 791st class. Let the ceremony begin." A yawn-inducing speech followed that had Ronan's eyes glazing over. Suddenly, the headmaster snapped his fingers. The sky literally tore open, revealing a glowing violet void. In a blinding flash, the entire student body was warped onto a massive combat arena. The headmaster's voice boomed across the hall, announcing the grand finale, the legendary upperclassmen meeting match. This wasn't just any spar. It was Philian Academy's signature tradition, where the top 2 freshmen held a special privilege. They could challenge any elite sophomore to a high-stakes duel, and while most would decline, The atmosphere was electric. Ronan had zero intention of backing down. This was his moment to prove to his sister that his weak days were over. He needed her to see his evolution, that he was now a guardian capable of crushing anyone who dared to bully him. With ice in his veins, Ronan looked the headmaster dead in the eye and demanded to fight all 4 seniors at once. The arena fell into a deathly silence before the teachers gasped in horror and the seniors erupted in pure, insulted rage. The headmaster turned to Professor Nyberger seeking guidance, but she just gave a sharp, confident nod toward the boys' request. She urged them to grant it, reminding everyone that at Philian Academy, absolute strength is the only law that matters. She promised to intervene if things turned lethal, and after a tense silence, the headmaster finally gave the green light. High in the stands, Ronan's sister gripped her seat in terror, begging him to forfeit the moment things got dangerous. Ronan just flashed her a cocky grin and a wave, signaling that he was purely in his element. Then the signal dropped. Nesta moved like a lightning bolt, blurring across the stone floor in a blink of an eye. Ronan dipped low, barely feeling the wind of the strike. This guy's speed made Maria's magic look like it was in slow motion. There was no time to process the gap in power before Karen's spear lunged toward his vitals like a striking viper. Forced into a corner, Ronan parried the blow, but the sheer kinetic force sent him skidding back across the arena floor. He struggled to find his footing just as Bram loomed over him, hoisting a monstrous claymore as tall as a man. Bram growled about wanting a fair one-on-one fight, clearly disappointed by the chaotic nature of the 4-way massacre. He brought the heavy blade down with earth-shattering power, while the other 3 prepared their own lethal follow-up strikes. The relentless coordination was terrifying, and Ronan couldn't help but admire the flawless synergy of the Academy's elite. Their teamwork was perfection, but in a split second, the dynamic of the entire battlefield shifted. Ronan vanished into thin air. The 4 seniors struck nothing but empty shadows, their momentum leaving them completely wide open. Moving like a vengeful ghost, Ronan reappeared in their blind spots, delivering a series of heavy bone-rattling strikes to 3 of them. With his teammates down, Bram's adrenaline spiked, and he charged forward, swinging his massive sword with desperate ferocity. But as Ronan raised his own blade to counter, Bram was struck by a chilling hallucination of Professor Nyberger standing there. By the time the senior snapped back to reality, his vision was filled with shards of his own broken weapon. The stadium was eerily quiet for a heartbeat before erupting into a roar of cheers that practically shook the foundations. Nobody believed a lone freshman could actually dismantle the 4 strongest sophomores in a single clean sweep. The defeated upperclassmen stood paralyzed in the dirt, their pride shattered, and their understanding of power completely rewritten. Ronan ignored the fame and looked toward the stands where his sister was frantically grabbing the person next to her. She was screaming at the top of her lungs, boasting to everyone that the monster on stage was her little brother. After a brief pause, Ronan approached the stunned seniors and offered a respectful 90-degree bow of gratitude. He thanked them for the intense lesson, admitting their strength was this exchange was a total masterclass. I'm seriously grateful a titan like you humored an unpolished rookie like me. Please overlook my earlier arrogance. I'm hoping you'll keep showing me the ropes from here on out. Below the stage, Maria and Asher were catching flies, convinced Ronan had accidentally popped some crazy pills. Even the upperclassmen were stunned into silence. Then, there was Bram, swinging from total despair to pure hype. He bolted upright, shouting, "No way, this kid is a monster on the field and a total gentleman." Lifting Ronan's arm in victory, he roared, "Drop the modesty, you crushed us with nothing but pure, unadulterated skill." That's the Philion way. Ronan just flashed a smirk. He just proved he's a beast in battle and a pro at politics. He wasn't just a fighter. He was a tactician who knew exactly how to play the social game. One thing was for sure, his sister could finally stop losing sleep over his safety. High in the bleachers, she was already a mess of happy tears, witnessing her brother's legendary transformation. In the shadows, a mysterious purple-haired woman watched him, a sharp, intriguing smile dancing on her lips. Interesting specimen, she mused. That night, Philion's banquet hall was glowing. Asher stood there, jaw hitting the floor. While he was starstruck by the glitz, Maria was already busy demolishing a massive, juicy lamb leg. When Ronan finally rolled in, Asher immediately grilled him about whether his sister had safely departed. Ronan nodded, sighing. She spent an eternity nagging me. I had to do some serious damage control to calm her down. I even sent Seda along as a personal bodyguard. He finally grabbed a drumstick, ready to feast at last. But out of nowhere, Shuripan materialized behind him like a vengeful spirit. Is now really the time for food? Ronan nearly jumped out of his skin. Seriously, you're like a shadow. What do you want now, Shuripan? The guy just whipped out a notebook, his expression dead serious. I'm here for critical intelligence gathering. Where exactly is Miss Iller's hometown? What's the terrain like? Is the local guard actually competent? Are the roads crawling with bandits? Ronan just stared, completely floored. This was his important business. Shuripan's face went dark. It's vital. I assume you've deployed elite guards or at least a mercenary squad. If not, you're basically a common thug. That was the final straw. Ronan absolutely lost it. I sent someone 10 times better than mercenaries. Unless a literal dragon falls from the sky, she's invincible. So stop being a creep. But Shuripan suddenly turned pale, cold sweat beading on his forehead. Wait, so if a dragon did appear, Miss Iller would be in mortal peril. Ronan felt a migraine coming on. You're insane. Back off. Why are you so obsessed with my sister? She's my family, not yours. Shuripan froze his mouth, hanging open as he struggled to find an answer. The air got thick and awkward, until a mocking laugh cut through. Well, this is a hilarious mess. The fierce wolf of Grancia, acting like a noisy brat, Shuripan turned his face instantly souring. You again. The newcomer was Albert, the reigning genius and top-ranked student of the magic division. Don't flatter yourself. I'm not here for you, I'm only interested in Ronan. Shuripan let out a breath. So Ronan is your new obsession. Fine, I've said my piece. Do whatever you want. He started walking away, but after a few paces, the guy actually doubled back. Ronan, I still think my family's elite guards are the safer bet. Ronan's forehead was practically throbbing. I'm begging you, go away. Once he finally vanished, Albert held out a mysterious purple brooch. I've got a proposal for you. The moment Ronan saw that trinket, his heart nearly stopped. Memories flooded back. In his past life, General Adashan had given him that exact same emblem. House Acrugia and Grancia were the Empire's twin titans, but they operated on totally different wavelengths. Unlike the bloodline-obsessed nobles, the Acrugia family worshipped one thing above all: raw talent. They scouted the best of the best, and this brooch was their ultimate golden ticket. I know you recognize this power. Don't waste it. I'm expecting a very smart move from you. Remember, a wolf that hides among sheep for too long eventually forgets how to hunt. Finally, orientation day arrived. In this academy, power was everything, and the housing assignments proved it. Average students scored private apartments and free buffets, but that was just the baseline for this hierarchy. Elite dorms offered total comfort, while the bottom 30% were crammed into a rotting shack at the academy's edge. That unlucky bunch included spoiled noble heirs who threw absolute tantrums the moment they arrived. Instructors simply warned them that the only way out of that dump was to grind and study. Fail, and they'd stay trapped. But the top 10%, including Ronan, were gifted their own private villas. The opulence was straight up blinding. Even Ronan felt his breath hitch at the sheer flex. It was peak luxury. While exploring the rooms, a document on the desk caught his eye. It was the Philion registration form granting students total freedom to choose their own path. His pen blurred across the page as Ronan smirked at the finished list. He'd registered for nearly 2/3 of the entire curriculum. He couldn't help but grin like a madman, imagining his epic new academy life. But that dream shattered into pieces the very next morning. At the basic swordsmanship grounds, the instructor fixed him with a cold stare. Student Ronan, you're done with this class. Ronan froze. But instructor, the semester literally just started. The instructor suddenly barked out a laugh. Precisely. And in this tiny window of time, you've mastered every single imperial sword form with flawless execution. Staying here would make the other students question their entire lives. With that, the teacher handed him his first completion certificate. Whether it was advanced combat or hunting deadly beasts, every lesson ended the exact same way. Ronan cleared them all instantly, leaving him with nothing but free time. Ronan sat by the campus river, reflecting on his weird situation. Who knows how long he sat there, before Niavira suddenly materialized beside him. Aren't you supposed to be in class? Why are you just chilling here? Before Ronan could even speak, she let out a soft chuckle. Actually, I think I already know. You've already cleared every single course, haven't you? Ronan sighed. I really thought Philion would be more of a challenge. This isn't what I imagined at all. Niavira didn't disagree. After all, he'd seen her secret technique just once, and already mimicked 80% of its true power. His talent was straight up monstrous. Then Niavira unbuckled the sword at her hip. As a Philion professor, I'm not a fan of hearing that. She gestured for Ronan to hand over his own weapon. So, let me give you a real lesson. While Ronan was still processing, a magic-infused sword aura streaked past his ear. A split second later, the lake behind him erupted into a massive wall of water. It surged toward the sky, but Niavira just sighed. Typical. A piece of junk like this can only do so much. If it can't channel magic properly, it's not a weapon. It's just dead weight holding you back. With that, Niavira unsheathed her own blade. With one effortless swing, she literally sliced the entire lake in two. The sheer power was dozens of times greater than before. Ronan stared, absolutely speechless. The stance and force were identical. So why was the gap so massive? He'd always believed that a weapon was just a disposable tool. Seeing him frozen in shock, Niavira flashed a satisfied smirk. Now you see what you're lacking. You can't wield magic yet, but I know you'll master it soon. Even if it's just for the day, you finally start infusing magic into your sword strikes. You need a weapon that actually fits you. After thinking it over, Niavira ordered Ronan to attend her lectures. Starting now, Ronan's head snapped up. Your class, isn't that for upperclassmen only true? But I'll grant you a special exception. But there's one condition. If you want in, you need to find a legendary tier weapon first. So, Ronan Asher and the crew headed straight for the forge Shuripan recommended. However, staring at the dilapidated shack before them, they couldn't believe this was the place House Grancia actually used. When they pushed the door open, the room was eerily empty. Just as the trio grew confused, a massive furry hand shoved open a back door. Suddenly, a werewolf towering over 2.5 meters tall stood over them, glaring with pure malice. Ronan quickly flashed the House Grancia token and explained they were there for a weapon. The werewolf just let out a bored, lazy yawn. "We don't serve kids here, so beat it, actually." His eyes locked onto Asher. "I am feeling pretty hungry right now. Hand over one of his limbs, and I might just work for you," the beast growled, leaving Asher paralyzed with pure terror. Asher frantically shrieked that he was filthy and tasted like trash, while Ronan's gaze hardened into sub-zero ice. Ronan's blade sang as it cleared the scabbard, the point driving ruthlessly toward the werewolf's gut. The creature winced from the impact, yet his skin remained untouched by even a single scratch. Spectral blue plating shimmered into existence around the beast. Ronan's knuckles whitened as he reset his combat stance. "Hold up, it's a prank, bro. Just a standard protocol for our workshop. Newbies gotta prove their worth. Plus, I needed to field test the durability of this phantom armor, so I pushed your buttons on purpose." The excuse was wild, but Ronan sensed zero deception from the guy. He sheathed his steel with a sigh. "Maybe try that stunt in broad daylight next time." The werewolf's ego vanished instantly as he flashed Asher a surprisingly toothy grin. "My bad for the jump scare, kid. Humans aren't on the menu today. Name's Dido. I'm just the bouncer here. This lobby is nothing. Wait until you see the actual forge." Leading them deeper, Dido triggered a concealed mechanism tucked between the weathered bricks. Gears ground together with a heavy metallic thud, sending violent tremors through the stone beneath them. Suddenly, the floor plummeted into the depths, catching everyone off guard as they descended rapidly. A sprawling subterranean metropolis emerged, the legendary Perugia, the Empire's crown jewel of craftsmanship. Thumping his chest, Dido declared, "You cleared the trial, Ronan. Time to fulfill my end of the bargain. I'm showing you the real treasure. Forget the city, witness what lies at its heart." They were headed toward the Empire's ultimate forge master. Dido moved with purpose through the tunnels. Deep within the earth they found him, a living legend rhythmically pounding glowing steel into shape. Boasting 400 years of mastery, Dylan paused his hammer as the intruders approached his sanctum. "3 guests, one of you must be packing some serious heat to set foot in here." Dido puffed out his chest, gesturing toward Ronan. "You bet, this one's the real deal. The kid's power is insane." Dylan eyed Ronan's youthful face with pure, unadulterated skepticism. "Words are wind. If I'm forging for him, let's see if he can actually handle a real blade." Though puzzled, Ronan wordlessly unsheathed the battered black iron sword resting at his hip. Dylan's face soured at the sight of the blade. "You call that heap of rusted junk a weapon?" Before Ronan could defend his gear, Dylan lunged and ripped the sword from his grasp. He swung his massive hammer in a blur, shattering the iron blade into 2 pathetic pieces. "Don't tell me you were actually relying on this trash." Ronan's expression instantly turned murderous. That trash was the best piece he'd scavenged from hundreds. "Hey, old man, do you have any idea what you just did?" Dylan simply pointed toward his personal collection. "Pick anything. It's on the house. Every single one is light years ahead of that garbage." Comparing his old blade to these masterpieces left Ronan stunned. He shot a questioning glance at Dido. With Dido's approval, Ronan grabbed a mithril blade that radiated a lethally sharp silver glow. As his fingers closed around the hilt, he felt a surge of pure, high-tier quality. Still, he wondered, was the difference really that massive? He looked at Dylan skeptical. "Promise me one thing, I'm not footing the bill for the damages." Dylan waved him off dismissively. "Unleash your deadliest move. Total destruction is on the house, kid. I won't charge a dime." With the green light given, Ronan's hand tightened. A specific devastating technique flashed through his mind, the same move Professor Nybayarger showcased yesterday. Dylan froze as Ronan's aura began to mimic Nye's. A shockwave of pure energy erupted. The blade descended with a thunderous, bone-shaking blast. The workshop walls disintegrated instantly, and a massive 100-meter canyon ripped through the floor. They both stood there in stunned silence. All of Dylan's previous arrogance had completely vanished. "Bills are cleared, don't sweat it. But tell me, are you Nybayarger's secret apprentice?" Ronan's eyes widened. "You know Professor Nia Berger," Dylan beamed with pride. "Naturally. That flying blade of hers, Urusha, born right here on my anvil. A true magnum opus from my 4 centuries at the forge." He let out a booming laugh, giving Ronan's shoulder a hearty, approving slap. "A strike that devastating without a drop of mana. Absolutely unheard of. You're a once-in-a-century monster, kid. But honestly, your insane raw power is actually a massive headache. Crafting a blade for you is a nightmare. Even high-grade mithril would shatter under your relentless assault." Normal alloys just won't cut it. We need top-tier steel, fused with a legendary catalyst. Ronan's face flashed with realization. He frantically rummaged through his pockets, pulling out a shard of the Dreambird eggshell. This thing is indestructible. Think it'll work. Dylan snatched the fragment and instantly began striking it. But after a few thunderous impacts, he froze. His heavy mithril hammer couldn't even leave a microscopic scratch on the surface. Dylan's expression shifted to pure obsession. This is unreal. Where did you find this godly material? Are you seriously letting me work with this? Ronan gave a sharp nod. Dylan's face glowed with excitement. Come back in 15 days, he promised, pounding his chest. I'll craft a masterpiece that'll put the entire capital to shame. Ronan grinned, feeling hyped. As the trio turned to head out, Dylan shouted, Hey, you two with the VIP. Don't leave empty-handed. Go hit up the other smiths in the shop. Tell them I sent you. They'll hook you up with the absolute best gear, no questions asked. Dylan was already back at his anvil. I'd show you the way, but honestly, this shell is all I can think about. Nothing else matters now, clang clang. The ringing steel echoed as Dylan's face flushed a deep crimson. This sound, it's intoxicating. The group could only stare at the mad blacksmith in silence. The warnings were true. Dylan was a total eccentric, but his talent was undeniable. Ronan led the others to snag their own gear. They didn't hold back at all, choosing only the priciest materials. Thanks to the Grancia token, Ronan didn't spend a single dime. House Grancia was footing the entire bill. With 2 weeks to kill, Ronan explored Philion. While wandering, he accidentally stumbled right onto Professor Nia Berger's elite training grounds. Staring up at the massive facility, Ronan felt a wave of nerves hit him. Nia's rule was clear, don't show up without a real weapon. With Dylan's work in progress, he finally qualified. Just as he was psyching himself up, Nia materialized out of thin air right beside him. Without a word, she snatched him by the ear. Long time no see, you little brat. I told you to report the second you got a blade. What took you so long? He tried to explain, but she hauled him toward the hall. Save the chatter. Move it. Ronan was thrown into the massive training arena. Nia crossed her arms, looking imposing. She glared at the class. You all know this kid, the one who caused that massive scene at the meeting. No intro needed. From today on, he's your new classmate. Deal with it. The room exploded into chaos. Jeers and whispers filled the air, but Ronan didn't blink. He scanned the room, noticing a few faces he definitely recognized. Bram and Nestu were there, and even his rival, Shuri Pan, was staring him down. Suddenly, a girl rushed in, gasping for breath as she apologized to Nia for being late. Nia didn't even snap at her. Instead, she introduced the newcomer to Ronan. The girl gave him a warm, radiating smile. Pleasure to meet you, said the class teaching assistant, Audrey Shawn. Second year. Ronan completely froze. There was no way. Could this really be the future legend, the first female Grand General in history? The terrifying Iron Lady herself was standing there looking. Absolutely precious, mind blown. Her gentle, sisterly aura vanished instantly, swallowed by a wave of pure confusion. Adashan was scurrying between students like a common nanny. Was she a TA or a babysitter? Was she just a punching bag for their whims? Suddenly, a student named Owen approached with a sneer. Yo Ronan, I'm Owen, a third year. I heard you put on quite a show recently. I wanted to see those skills firsthand. How about a little spar to test your luck? Ronan's eyes stayed glued to Adashan's plight. He didn't care for Owen's games, but the senior wasn't finished. Owen turned and barked, Hey, you idiot Adashan, get my practice spear over here now. Adashan flinched and nodded frantically. Yes, I'll go get it right this second. When she returned with the long spear, Owen scoffed. I switched to a short spear ages ago. Are you stupid? Why bring this? Adashan stammered. Sorry, but in the last class you used. Before she could explain, Owen's spear slammed into her head with a sickening heavy thud. A TA who can't remember the basics. What a pathetic excuse for a student. You only got in by begging instructor Nia Berger, like a dog. You don't belong here, and you can't even handle this. Pathetic. Before another insult could land, Ronan's hand crushed the spear shaft. I'll accept that spar. Come here, you arrogant piece of trash. Adashan was the Grand General Ronan respected above all. Humiliating her was a death sentence. Owen just curled his lip into a mocking smirk. Oh, now you're interested in fighting. Don't tell me you're white knighting for this loser, or is there something dirty between you two? Before he could finish the slur, Ronan's blade buried itself deep into Owen's chest. The force launched Owen backward like a ragdoll. He stood up, trembling in total disbelief. No magic. How could a raw physical strike hit like a mountain? Ronan's eyes were ice. You whined about wanting a short spear, so I made one. Now, shall we duel properly? Owen looked down at his snapped weapon. The humiliation burned through his veins like molten lava. Gripping the jagged spearhead, he lunged at Ronan with the desperation of a cornered beast. Ronan stood perfectly still. He waited until the blade was 0.01 centimeters away. With a casual flick, he parried the strike. Owen's momentum sent him reeling into the dirt. Ronan followed up by smashing his wooden sword across Owen's jaw, nearly blacking him out. Ronan wasn't satisfied. He surged forward, unleashing a vicious black mamba claw strike. Owen collapsed, twitching in a heap of broken pride. Ronan leveled his sword at the bystanders. Now it's your turn. I've got more than enough time for every single one of you. Treating the TA like your personal servant. Are you all really that pathetic? If you love bullying so much, try me. I'm a very easy target. Go ahead. Adishan scrambled between them, her face pale. Stop it, Ronan. That's enough. I'm really fine, please. Don't make a scene over me. Just calm down. I won't let these insects treat you like dirt. In this empire, no one touches you. If I don't teach this pack a lesson, I'm not Ronan. Then instructor, Nia's voice boomed. The spar is over. A suffocating pressure instantly descended, crushing the very air. Ronan's body locked up. It wasn't fear. His muscles simply refused to obey under her aura. It felt like a massive serpent was coiled around his neck, making every breath agonizing. I'll overlook Owen's condition since this was a spar. On a battlefield, he'd be dead. But if you take another step, I won't just stand by as your teacher. Understand? Ronan's jaw tightened in fury. She had watched the bullying happen and did absolutely nothing. Nia offered no excuse for her silence, her gaze turning even more predatory and cold. This is between my assistant and me. You have no right to interfere. Back off. I'm warning you one last time. Are you going to stop, or do I act? Ronan funneled every drop of willpower to shatter Nyaburger's suffocating pressure, slowly reclaiming his freedom. Leveling his wooden blade at Nyaburger, he growled, "Ask 1,000 times, my answer stays the same. I'm not stopping until the job is done." Nyaburger sighed. Fine, have it the hard way then. As she whispered latent gift, Ronan felt like a colossal blood-stained serpent was lunging to swallow him whole. Darkness swallowed him as he blacked out. Suddenly he was back in that recurring dream. There she was, the iron-blooded Grand General. Even facing certain death against the giants, she never once flinched. She bore the commander's heavy burden with pride. When Ronan asked why, her response was chillingly simple. Everyone has a duty they can't outrun. Suddenly the dream shifted, plunging him into a new nightmare. It was the end. The eight-winged giant had arrived. She pressed the mysterious bead into his hand. A strange peace washed over her. "Ronan, don't you dare forgive me," she whispered softly. "I'm selfishly dumping the Empire's fate on your shoulders." Ronan screamed for answers, but his voice failed. He snapped awake, gasping for air, only to find Adation sitting right there, looking totally concerned. Her worried gaze was intense. Ronan awkwardly rubbed his neck, playing it off as just another bad dream. After a quiet beat, she asked, "You stood up to them, just for my sake, didn't you?" Ronan's face flushed bright red. "Psh, no way. I just can't stand bullies, that's all there is." She giggled. "You're a terrible liar, Ronan." Then her expression shifted, becoming dead serious. "Don't blame Nyaburger or Owen. This was my choice. See, this class is usually for master ranks. I'm a repeater who can barely spark a flame. I don't really belong here yet. Auditing this class is a huge favor. I told Nyaburger to ignore me so she wouldn't feel awkward. I told her to let them treat me however they wanted." Ronan was floored. He couldn't believe it. In his past life, her aura was godlike. He never dreamed the legendary general ever struggled like this. Turns out even she hit a wall. "Since I'm getting this chance," she continued, "I'll pay whatever price is needed. But, thanks." Ronan hesitated, staring at her for a long beat. Finally, he blurted out, "Are you grinding this hard to become the Grand General?" Adishan froze, completely blindsided. "Wait, how did you know that was my dream? Did I leak that somehow?" Suddenly, her fists tightened, and her eyes blazed with pure determination. "I'm weak now, but I won't stop until I'm there." Ronan just stared at her in stunned silence. Thinking he was judging her, she added, "I know it sounds crazy, but I'm never giving up. Every step I take is for that goal." Seeing her burning passion, Ronan felt a pang of guilt. In his past life, her dying wish was for him to tell her younger self, to just live a quiet life as a tailor. But this Adishan was overflowing with ambition. Seeing her stubborn fire, he couldn't crush her dreams. Even after she walked away, he stayed silent. He was totally lost on what to do. Fast forward a few days. Ronan was crashing for the night when Dylan's letter arrived. Next morning, he was on the move. He dragged Asher and Maria to the forge, hyped to see what was inside. But the place was a ghost town. With nobody around, they had to go full detective mode to find an entrance. After some random poking, Ronan actually triggered a hidden switch. Talk about main character luck. As the elevator dropped, the trio's jaws hit the floor. This wasn't the bustling city they expected. The underground city was a total war zone, littered with the broken bodies of fallen blacksmiths. Then Asher spotted the nightmare. A massive rock giant was tearing through the city like a wrecking ball. It was hunting survivors. Ronan went into leader mode, sending Maria back to the academy for backup. As for him, he had Asher use telekinesis to launch him straight into the heart of the chaos. The giant's fist was inches from crushing the smiths when Ronan slammed down, saving them just in time. A single blinding sword strike shattered the giant's stone armor, like glass. The rescued smiths were totally speechless. They couldn't wrap their heads around it. How was this kid pulling off such legendary feats? Ronan pulverized the high-defense rock giant with one devastating blow, sticking the landing on its crumbling corpse. He pressed for answers as the traumatized smiths recounted the horror with quivering voices. Moments ago, a swarm of rock giants erupted from the foundations of the subterranean city. They pulverized everything in sight, hunting the smiths and dragging Master Dylan into the depths. Other elite smiths vanished as the monsters retreated underground, leaving only the beast Ronan just executed. With the last threat neutralized, Ronan ordered Sita and Asher to stay put. After tasking them with medical aid, he rushed to save Dylan and reclaim his precious blade. Deep in the abyss, Dylan gripped a cloth-wrapped sword, while Didi Wei acted as his shield. Battered and bloody, Didi Wei neared his limit, prompting a wave of guilt to wash over Dylan. I appreciate you risking everything for me, but you should have saved yourself. Your cloaking armor could have ensured your escape. Just leave. Didi Wei erupted in fury. Quit the loser talk and use that sword already. Instead, Dylan just squeezed the weapon tighter. No, this is my magnum opus. I won't let its maiden strike be tainted by weakness. A layman like me shouldn't wield it. Didi Wei nearly snapped at the old man's insanity. Suddenly, rock giants encircled them, raising massive stone fists to deliver a crushing blow. They aimed to pulverize them. Didi Wei braced himself and tanked the devastating impact. The giant's raw power was too much. Blood sprayed as his armor's enchantments disintegrated. As the killing blow descended, a crimson flash tore through the darkness at blinding speed. A storm of blades erupted, butchering the giants before they could even let out a scream. Ronan touched down gracefully. I've got this. The pair stared shocked by his sudden arrival. How did you survive that army of giants? Ronan responded with a mysterious smirk. I cleared them out while saving the others. He reached out his hand toward Dylan. Give me the sword. My current blade is at its breaking point. Dylan paused briefly. Finally, he revealed the weapon. This is a masterpiece without equal, Dylan whispered. It is your perfect match, though it lacks a sheath. Ronan gripped the hilt firmly. His eyes widened. The blade felt like air, yet pulsed with a hidden scorching energy. Power surged through it. Perfect. Let's see how these armored giants handle this edge. As more giants lunged, Ronan unleashed a single decisive swing without missing a beat. A radiant crimson aura exploded, vaporizing the oncoming behemoths into mere pebbles instantly. Ronan reeled from the sheer destruction. Professor Nebar wasn't kidding about this weapon's potential. The difference a god-tier weapon makes is insane. Dylan's eyes gleamed with pride. He asked if La Mancha fit his grip. The blade felt practically weightless. Infused with dreambird eggshells, La Mancha can drink blood to self-repair any damage. The blade shared its name with the legendary explorer Dylan revered most. Ronan didn't skimp on the praise, hailing Dylan's work as a true divine feat. Dylan glowed. For a master smith, such recognition was the ultimate peak of glory. Suddenly, Ronan approached the mangled remains of one of the fallen giants. He discovered an eerie magic seal etched onto the back of its skull. These loners never hunt in packs or attack unprovoked. This raid was anything but natural. The mysterious seal was the culprit, yet its complex design left the group baffled. After 400 years of life, even Dylan had never witnessed such an alien pattern. He sensed a dark power within it that no common mage could ever hope to manifest. Dread filled Ronan. He commanded Didi Wei to escort Dylan to safety immediately. Pushing deeper alone, Ronan spotted a chilling anomaly among the tracks on the floor. Hidden among the giant tracks were several sets of undeniably human-sized footprints. Even worse, the cavern walls were studded with mana-sensing gems. Designed to trigger alarms, they were dead weight against Ronan, a man born without a trace of mana. Breaching the cavern's heart, Ronan froze. Standing tall in the shadows was a colossal golden titan, dwarfing the golems from earlier. Though the beast remained shackled by ancient seals, its overwhelming killing intent made his skin prickle. Below the titan, two white-robed figures lingered, whispering in the dark. Ronan crept forward, desperate to uncover their sinister scheme. When the man smirked, his lips twisting into a vile grin as fire ignited in his hand. I picked up that blacksmith stench ages ago. Didn't think anyone was gutsy enough to intrude. Without warning, he hurled a scorching fireball directly at Ronan's head. Ronan blurred, narrowly evading the blast. The mage's eyes widened in shock. Well, look at you. You've actually got some skill. Tell you what, but before he could finish, a swarm of blazing chains erupted from his palm, hunting Ronan down. Ronan's pulse quickened. This wasn't some low-tier mage. This was high-level, physicalized magic. Tightening his grip on Lamancia, Ronan sliced through the infernal chains in a flash, a cocky grin playing on his lips. Who are you, freaks? This is a weird place for a date, even for desperate losers. Ronan's trash talk only made the mage laugh. Hope your blade is as sharp as your tongue. The woman beside him scowled, annoyed by the delay. But the man was unfazed. Our work here is finished anyway. The subterranean city is ashes. The Empire's tech just got knocked back a century. Besides, this kingdom is doomed to be consumed by starlight. Might as well have some fun before the end. Those words hit Ronan like a lightning bolt, identical to a Hayut's final breath. Fury burned in his gaze. What the hell are you rats talking about? Ronan's aura turned razor sharp, making the mage hesitate. A chill ran down his spine. Shaking it off, he summoned another surge of flames. In a blink, Ronan was already there. The mage didn't even see the strike coming. His torso was cleaved in two instantly. Stay down. I've got questions for you later. The woman stood paralyzed, drenched in cold sweat. Who? What are you? Silent Ronan lunged, crushing her throat in his grip. His eyes were cold as ice. Talk or you're next. He squeezed harder, his gaze demanding the truth. Trapped and gasping, Cirilla desperately triggered a mana barrier, forcing Ronan back. He glared at his tingling palm, sheer annoyance crossing his features. So she chose the hard way. Before she could even breathe, a cross slash ripped through the air, shattering her shield like glass. Cirilla's jaw dropped. A monster who cuts through mana. Before she could process the terror, his blade pierced her. Her hood fell back, exposing pointed ears and the ethereal grace of an elf. A half-elf, huh? Ronan hissed. Spill it. What are you two planning? Suddenly, a giant fireball roared toward his back. Reacting with godlike reflexes, Ronan spun, cleaving the flames in two. Through the smoke, his face hardened. Edward was healing limbs knitting back together instantly. He glared at Ronan with murderous bloodshot eyes, fire swirling in his palms. Get your hands off her, you bastard. Ronan simply plunged his blade into Cirilla's leg. You clearly don't get who's in charge here. Two options, surrender now, or I turn this elf into mincemeat. Bet she doesn't heal as fast as you. Edward shook with absolute fury. Finally, he snuffed out his flames. Fine, I'll come quietly. Ronan smirked. Good boy. Killing you both would be a waste of intel. But as Ronan glanced down at his captive, he caught something. A haunting smile on her face. Suddenly, the Titan erupted with a bone-crushing aura. The Titan's massive arm slammed down toward him. No escape. Ronan could only brace his blade for impact. He tanked that devastating strike head-on. The shockwave blasted him back dozens of meters instantly. Good thing Edward intervened. That fireball bought me the second I needed to regain my focus. I had to mask our presence just to manipulate that giant. I barely managed to move its arm. But with power like that, the brat is definitely finished. Flames surged in Edward's palm once more. Cirilla, head back to the church and report. I'll finish this annoying pest myself. I won't underestimate him again. But before he could finish, his limbs were sliced clean off. In a heartbeat, Ronan flickered in front of them like a vengeful phantom from the shadows. A whirlwind of steel shredded Edward's body instantly. Ronan grabbed the hostage, his voice turning ice cold. Where do you think you're running? Like I said, I still have plenty of questions for you. Pure terror gripped Cirilla as she stumbled back, desperately scrambling to manifest a magic barrier. Meanwhile, Ronan forced his broken body forward, dragging himself toward them, step by agonizing step. But as he prepared to strike, his muscles suddenly seized up. His body was no longer his own. Ronan could only grit his teeth and tighten his grip, fighting to stay in his combat stance. That last strike had redlined his body. The sheer backlash of his power left him completely paralyzed. Sensing the opening, Cirilla ignored the chance to attack and activated a teleportation circle to flee. You're lucky I can't kill you now, but you'd better be ready when I return. We'll hunt down your entire bloodline. Your family and friends will pay for this in blood. Ronan desperately tried to intercept her, but his exhausted limbs refused to move a single inch. Cirilla stepped toward the shimmering portal. Just as she began to fade, a furious roar shook the cave. A shout filled with murderous intent echoed through the cavern. Don't you dare move. I have some questions of my own. Suddenly, a terrifying, suffocating aura swallowed the entire mine. Cirilla watched in horror as her body froze midair. Then a powerful hand clamped onto her face. His grip tightened. Your list of death-worthy crimes is long, but here's what really pisses me off. You dared to lay a finger on my disciple. A massive, spectral serpent lunged forward with a roar. It snapped its jaws shut around Cirilla. In that instant, her world faded into total darkness. She crumpled to the floor. With the threat neutralized, Nia Bjorger sheathed her sword and turned to Ronan. Great work out there. Go get patched up. I'll inform the headmaster and ship these two to Ruchulin. Ronan froze in shock. Ruchulin, the infamous northern nether fortress, the most brutal prison in existence. It was a hellscape built in the deep sea, where the screams of the damned never stop echoing. The interrogators there are legendary for breaking souls. No one ever leaves that place in one piece. Realizing the opportunity, Ronan lunged forward and grabbed Nia Bjorger's hand with desperate intensity. Master, please let me go to Ruchulin. I need to witness their trial with my own eyes. It's personal. Nia looked stunned. It was the first time she'd seen the arrogant brat actually lower his head. I'll consider it. Elsewhere, the town of Perugia had been reduced to nothing but smoking ruins. Luckily, the casualties were stabilized thanks to the survivors' efforts. Maria was busy managing the remaining supplies. She was relatively unscathed, but Asher and Saida were running on empty, their mana completely drained. They kept healing the wounded, but their minds were on Ronan. He promised to return hours ago. It's been over 2 hours already. Just then, a familiar voice cut through their mounting anxiety. Are you guys talking about me? Seeing Ronan walk in, Saida's eyes welled up as she sprinted forward. She reached out to cast a healing spell, but Ronan gently stopped her with a tired smile. Save your strength. I've been treated. Besides, I have one more urgent matter to attend to. Later that evening, Nia Bjorger led Ronan to the cliffside. A black griffin descended carrying dark-clad figures. Their leader dismounted and bowed deeply. Greetings, Lady Nia Bjorger. We are here by imperial decree. We've come to take custody of the prisoners. Nia gave a short nod, her expression unreadable. The status of the 2 prisoners was laid bare. The woman is just a half-elf, nothing too shocking there. But the male captive is a total nightmare. He possesses a freakish healing factor that makes a dark spark dance in the man's eyes. A self-healing freak, huh? Our dungeons haven't seen a specimen this captivating in a hot minute. The head interrogator is going to lose his mind when he hears this. With that, the squad vanished into the shadows. We're taking Cyrilla and Edward. Expect a call once the torture is wrapped up. Niebjerger then locked eyes with Ronan. Your request is officially greenlit. 1 week is plenty of time for Ruthel to rip the truth from their throats. Stay on standby. I'll ping you the second we get a lead. As the days blurred together, Ronan pushed his limits under Niebjerger's brutal training, while the ruins of Perugia were slowly being rebuilt underground. 7 days vanished in a heartbeat. Deep within Ruthel's walls, blood-curdling screams and agonizing sobs never stopped echoing. After a full week of relentless pressure, Kafka was finally certain that Edward had spilled every dirty little secret. A message was fired off to Niebjerger. It was finally time for Ronan to make his move. Kafka stood before them wearing a smile so warm it felt almost suspicious. Allow me to introduce myself. I'm Kafka, the one breaking these prisoners and your host for the day. Follow my lead. I'll spill the interrogation tea as we walk. Staring at the kindly old man, Ronan couldn't wrap his head around the fact that this was Ruthel's legendary torturer. Niebjerger read the confusion on Ronan's face instantly. Everyone has that exact same reaction when they first meet him. Don't let the grandpa vibes fool you. Every soul that enters his chamber ends up begging for the sweet release of death. He's a literal living nightmare. The air grew heavy as they reached the prison's main junction. We're approaching the cells, so listen up. Here's the lowdown. Their crew goes by the name Krakow. Niebjerger's eyebrows shot up. Never heard of them. Are they just another low-level syndicate like Caribru? Kafka nodded grimly. Yes, but the fact that they've stayed under our radar makes them 10 times more lethal. These guys aren't your average thugs. They're ghosts, which makes them way more dangerous than any street gang. From the Niran Granary Inferno to the Arcane Research Lab Blast, it's all starting to click. Every major unsolved disaster hitting the Empire this past year has their fingerprints all over it. Ronan froze his blood, turning to ice. If they were this active, why was there zero mention of them in his past life? Interrogator, did they mention anything about Starlight? Or maybe the descent of the stars? Ronan blurted out. Kafka looked genuinely stumped. That's a new one for me. Never heard a peep about stars. Ronan played it off awkwardly, rubbing the back of his neck. I thought I caught a whisper of it during the capture. Just wondered if it was their endgame or something. But the second the words left his mouth, Kafka's face went cold. He reached for his bird-masked hood and snapped it over his features. A twisted, manic energy flickered in his gaze. I can't believe I showed such a sloppy side of myself to our guests. My bad, I clearly haven't been transparent enough with our friends yet. Time to show them some real sincerity. Suddenly, Kafka's aura exploded. Ronan felt a bone-chilling pressure wash over him, making every hair on his skin stand up. When Ronan finally saw Edward and Cyrilla, he was floored. The arrogant duo from before were now just broken husks. They were mangled beyond recognition, their faint whimpers the only sign of life. Kafka then grabbed a torture iron. The metal glowed a demonic red as he spoke in a hauntingly calm voice. Our buddy Edward here is special. Dark magic keeps stitching his body back together. It's quite the trick. But breaking a healer is actually light work. You just keep torching them until there's nothing left to heal. Without blinking, he plunged the searing metal deep into Edward's chest. He only pulled back when Edward was on the brink of death. Aren't we supposed to be besties who share everything? Real friends don't gatekeep secrets, right? Edward broke down instantly, sobbing that he was innocent. He swore on his life he wasn't hiding a thing. Kafka's cold gaze then drifted toward Ronan. Then why is our guest here asking about the descent of the stars? He shifted his focus to a trembling Cyrilla. Consider this a fair warning. Start talking now. Unlike your friend, Miss Cyrilla doesn't have that cute, regenerative cheat code. If I start on her, I'll have to be way more creative. Even so, Edward stayed tight-lipped, desperately pleading for Kafka to end his life. Witnessing this, Ronan's mind began to race. Their covers were blown, yet they wouldn't crack. Maybe it wasn't a choice to stay silent. Perhaps they were physically gagged, much like those elite shadow units who die guarding their secrets. Pre-installed curse magic often acts as a failsafe, preventing any leaks if they're ever taken alive. Hearing this, Kafka went stiff before bolting toward the exit. My bad, you two. I completely dropped the ball today by overlooking something so basic. Sit tight for a moment. I have to grab something. 2.5 minutes later, Kafka reappeared with a twisted artifact. Resembling a severed eyeball, this is the Eye of Curse, a relic designed to feast on dark hexes. When prisoners are magically silenced, these creepy little fellows are an absolute godsend for us. Kafka shoved the eye against Edward's brow. Instantly, shadowy tendrils burrowed deep into his skull. Amidst a barrage of blood-curdling screams, the artifact began radiating a haunting sapphire light. The agonizing purge only stopped once Edward's eyes were drowned in a deep neon blue. Kafka leaned in close, demanding an answer. Talk to me, pal. What is this? Descent of stars. Edward fought for every breath, his voice barely a rasping whisper. The stars. They are eternal. They're the only salvation for the weak, and we are the flames sent to purge every threat. We await the Star Child's arrival from the void. Enraged, Ronan marched straight toward the captive. Face contorted with fury, Ronan snarled. This Star Child you're worshipping, is it Ahayut? Pure terror washed over Edward's face. How could you possibly know the name, Ahayut? Beside him, a crippled Cyrilla desperately tried to silence him, but she was far too slow. Edward's body began inflating at a sickening pace. Ronan could only watch, frozen in shock. Kafka lunged, shielding Ronan behind a magical barrier just as the human bomb detonated. As the dust settled, Kafka sighed heavily. It seems he was rigged with dual-layer restrictions. One hex blocked all star-related intel, while the second acted as a lethal self-destruct trigger. Kafka gripped Ronan's shoulder, his expression darkening. Lord Ronan, if I'm not mistaken, that name is top-tier classified info within their cult. So how do you know their secrets? The moment he spoke, mana began swirling dangerously within his palm. He was ready to detain Ronan by force, yet the young warrior didn't even flinch. He casually brushed Kafka's hand away. I just picked it up while I was bagging them. Kafka knew he was lying, but the absolute venom in Ronan's eyes toward the star giant was so raw and genuine that he backed off. Ronan would never betray the Empire. Before he could press further, a freezing blade was suddenly pressed against his own windpipe. A deathly chill seized his soul. Sir Bayranger's eyes were now burning with a savage intensity. You think you can grill my student right in front of me? Kafka felt cold sweat dripping. He instantly released Ronan, his voice trembling with newfound reverence. Just verifying facts. Former sword saint. He quickly bowed to Ronan in apology. Forgive my rudeness, Lord Ronan. I crossed the line. The sudden 180-degree turn left, Ronan stunned. He stood there for a beat, unsure how to react. Finally, he waved it off, accepting the apology once the tension had simmered down. Seeing that Ronan wasn't holding a grudge, Kafka finally let out a massive sigh of relief. He then glanced at the charred Eye of Curse on the floor, with a pained expression. Losing an Eye of Curse for such a short interrogation is a total tragedy. These rare beauties are harder to track down than legendary beasts. He turned to his shoulder. Looking at his remaining tool, a flicker of hope returned. At least one survived the blast. If we're more surgical from here on, we might still squeeze some answers out of them. But suddenly Kafka's face paled, his expression shifting from hope to absolute horror. The second eye, which hadn't even touched a prisoner, had also turned a haunting sapphire blue. A chilling realization struck him. That frantic magic shield must have backfired, colliding with Ronan and tainting the Eye of Curse. With a jolt of panic, Kafka shoved the last eye into Ronan's palm. My lord, excuse my rudeness, but boom, the relic shattered upon contact. Kafka froze, paralyzed. Throughout his career, he had never witnessed such chaos. This was a total anomaly. Kafka slowly looked up, his gaze turning ice cold. Ronan, pay attention. You are harboring a sinister hex, buried deep within. Ever felt, capped. Like common tasks are impossible for you. Ronan's heart thrashed. Was this why he was magic blind all these years? Sensing Ronan's hesitation, Kafka backed off. If this stays a secret, my lips are sealed. This is beyond my pay grade, but hear me clearly. This curse reeks of pure, unadulterated malice. Someone truly wants you dead. Watch your back. Kafka paused, then added, do not lose hope just yet. Legend says Professor Secret of Filion is the continent's top curse breaker. He is your best shot. Returning to Filion, Ronan's eyes burned with a maddening itch. Knowing a hex lived inside him only fueled his mounting anxiety. Nia Berger noticed his spiral and stepped in. That irritation is actually a good sign. It means the curse is losing its grip. Do not stress. Then she pivoted. Any clue who marked you, Ronan? Just shook his head, lost. He sounded bewildered. I have been a decent guy. I do not have enemies like that, who would despise me so much. Nia, however, was not buying it. She stared out the window, recalling Ronan's fierce defense of Adashan earlier. Those memories looped. Suddenly, Ronan's voice snapped her back to reality. Hey master, thanks for checking Kafka. Without you, things would have gotten messy. He would not have backed down. Nia chuckled. Just doing my job as your mentor. No thanks needed. Ronan went quiet, his respect for her skyrocketing. The Sword Saint was not just a powerhouse. She was pure class. But a nagging thought surfaced. In his past life during the Bloody Wars, where was this elite Sword Saint? Why had they never once crossed paths? Daybreak came. Ronan rushed to Pillar Park, the magic department's private turf. Adishan was already there per Nia's orders. Her face lit up instantly. Ronan, it feels like forever. If Nia had not called, who knows when we would meet. I have missed you. How have you been holding up? Her wholesome vibe caught him off guard. He still was not sure how to act. Sensing his discomfort, she gracefully eased the tension. I heard about your little internal problem. You are looking to break a curse. Ronan nodded, trailing behind her. They say Professor Secret is the goat of curse breaking. He scanned the eerie gloom, whispering under his breath. What kind of legend lives in a dump like this? Must be a total weirdo. She giggled. Spot on. His office is a maze. Outsiders cannot even find it. I had to call in a favor from a magic-savvy friend. Just then, a purple blur materialized. Before they could blink, the figure pounced on Adeshan like a hyper kitten. Big sis, I missed you. Check out my new spell. Sick right. Adeshan could not stop laughing. Sorry for the sudden summons. We have got a crisis and need Professor Secret. Albert perked up instantly, nuzzling her with pure affection. Nuzzling against the back of Adeshan's hand like a love-struck puppy, his reply came without a second of doubt. It's no trouble, Sister Adeshan. Your wish is my absolute command. Taking in this surreal display, Ronan stood, rooted to the spot. Was this really the same arrogant elite from House Acruzia, the guy whose ego usually filled every room? He was practically unrecognizable. But just as Albert continued his cringe-worthy simping over Adeshan, he suddenly spotted Ronan lurking in the periphery. The second Albert realized they had an audience, his face went pale before turning a deep shade of mortified. Realizing the secret was out, Ronan broke the deafening silence first, snapping back to his senses. Albert practically teleported away from Adeshan's side. What are you doing here, and why are you with Sister Adeshan? Despite being 1,000% unwilling, Albert eventually led Ronan to a dilapidated old house. But the moment Ronan sensed the chilling atmosphere inside his brows knitted together, his voice held a mix of suspicion and amusement. Don't tell me you're planning to silence me because of what I saw. Hearing that, Albert's temper flared instantly. Zip it and just follow me. They stepped further inside only to find a snoring elderly woman. Ronan went silent, glancing at Albert in disbelief. Was this really supposed to be the legendary Professor Secret? Albert ignored the look and marched toward the old woman. Just one final step remains, he muttered. Whatever happens next, try not to freak out. As he spoke, Albert raised his arm, chanting a complex high-tier incantation. Suddenly, the motionless woman's eyes flew open, and her jaw unhinged with terrifying speed. A massive vortex erupted from deep within her throat. When Ronan finally opened his eyes, they were standing in a massive office overflowing with ancient books. Ronan was floored. He never expected the front door to this place to be designed like some fever dream. Out of nowhere, a small child appeared. So, you're Nyberger's new disciple. She wasn't kidding about that nasty curse inside you. Ronan stared at the kid in total shock. No way. This child is actually Professor Secret. Reading his mind, Secret smirked. Don't be shocked. I'm over 80 years old, but save the questions for later. Priority 1 is purging that rot inside your soul. With a casual snap of his fingers, a blinding flash erupted, and a complex mana circle ignited beneath Ronan's feet. Shimmering runic symbols materialized, revolving around his body like a spectral cage. Secret's expression turned grim as he scanned the formation, his voice laced with shock. I didn't expect this level of complexity. It's a literal knot of multiple curses, woven with the malice of an ancient sorcerer. He was at a total loss. At those words, Ronan's heart plummeted. Is there really no way to purge this darkness from my soul? Secret dismissed the concern with a casual wave. Relax. Though I gotta say, the sheer volume of curses inside you is straight up overkill. I've got a plan. I'm crafting a mental landscape within your subconscious, where those inner demons will take physical form. The mission is basic. Hunt down the root curse that's got you on a leash and end it. Kill the source, break the spell. Before Ronan could react, Secret's finger tapped his brow. Instantly, his consciousness felt like it was being snatched away by a titan. An irresistible force dragged his soul down, spiraling into a pitch-black void, until every spark of awareness finally flickered out. When his eyes snapped open, the scenery had completely shifted. Recognizing the familiar walls of his childhood home, his entire body froze. A cold sweat broke out as a violent shiver crawled up his spine. Why would the origin of his suffering be hidden here? Suddenly, a child's bright, bubbly laughter echoed through the air. Little Iller came sprinting toward the cottage at full speed. Mom, I'm home, she chirped. Driven by pure, raw instinct, Ronan found himself drifting into the house right after her. Inside, he saw Iller hovering over a small cradle, her eyes sparkling with pure adoration for the infant sleeping within. Little brother is so precious, but why is little Ronan always napping? Is he feeling under the weather or something? Just then, a woman who looked like a mirror image of an older Iller walked in, her movements radiating a gentle warmth. She smiled softly. Babies just need their rest to grow strong, sweetie. But if he ever gets sick, it'll be your job as his big sister to protect him. Iller pumped her tiny fist, her face glowing with pure determination. Her voice was small, but her resolve was absolute. No problem, Mom. I'll be Ronan's guardian for the rest of my life. Ronan stood there, mesmerized by the blinding warmth of a memory he'd long forgotten. It was almost too painful to watch. But the peace was brutally shattered. A violent, heavy thud echoed through the house as the front door was kicked wide open. A soul-crushing chill and a malevolent aura flooded the room, turning the cozy atmosphere into a literal living nightmare. Every hair on Ronan's neck stood on end. Pure dread surged through him as he desperately fought to face the intruder. It was useless. His limbs felt like they'd been cast in lead, paralyzed by an unseen power he couldn't hope to break. He watched helplessly as a blurred, ghostly shadow drifted through the threshold, radiating a cold, ancient malice. Iller rushed forward to greet the newcomer, but the shadow cruelly shoved her aside and marched straight toward the cradle. Their mother, oblivious to the danger, assumed it was just a father's longing to see his son. Her smile never faded. "The baby's right there," she whispered warmly. "He really does look exactly like you, doesn't he?" Without warning, the shadow lunged at her. His lips moved in a silent, jagged chant that Ronan couldn't hear. The mother collapsed like a broken doll. Little Iller stood there, frozen in terror as her world fractured in a heartbeat. Before the girl could scream, the shadow turned his cold gaze toward her and repeated the dark ritual with chilling efficiency. Watching his family fall, Ronan felt like his heart was being crushed in a vice. The agony was completely unbearable. He was a prisoner in his own mind, forced to witness the carnage. Next, the shadow loomed over the infant Ronan. Obsidian marks swirled around his claws, pouring a flood of concentrated curses directly into the baby's defenseless chest. In that sickening moment, the realization hit Ronan like a truck. This monstrous entity was the true root of his nightmare. Outside, Secret's hands were shaking violently, his face turning pale as he struggled to keep the complex spell from shattering. "I prepped for the worst, but this is insane. My mana is being devoured faster than I can even replenish it." The sheer intensity of this curse was light years beyond anything the professor had ever encountered in his entire life. Albert watched in disbelief. He had never seen the legendary Professor Secret look so utterly pushed to his absolute limit. "Even you're struggling," Albert gasped. "Just how many layers of hell are actually buried inside that boy?" Secret looked up, his expression grimmer than ever. This was no longer just a simple removal. It was a war. If we're talking pure numbers, he's carrying at least 10 different death sentences woven into his very soul. And the one I just burned my entire mana pool to neutralize, that was only the very first layer. Inside the mental realm, the invisible chains finally snapped. Ronan's body was finally back under his own control. The shadow had vanished into thin air, but Ronan didn't give chase. He scrambled toward the two people on the floor. Relief washed over him as he confirmed they were merely trapped in a magical slumber, their lives not yet extinguished. Clenching his jaw, Ronan forced himself to swallow the tidal wave of rage and sorrow boiling in his chest. He knew the truth now. That shadow was the prime target, and it was finally time to end this nightmare. Yet the lethal fury burning in his chest wouldn't fade. A second later, his sword La Mancha materialized instantly at his side. The door shattered into splinters as Ronan lunged forward with blinding speed, desperate to hunt the phantom. But as he burst outside, he froze dead in his tracks. The specter hadn't fled. It stood nearby, poised as if it had been anticipating Ronan's arrival. Without a moment's doubt, he tightened his grip on La Mancha and bolted toward the figure. Unexpectedly, the entity just raised a hand with eerie calm and conjured a swirl of abyssal energy. Instantly, that darkness molded itself into a phantom blade. With a lazy flick, it parried Ronan's desperate strike with ease. The boy stood paralyzed. He never dreamed a mere curse could duel. Based on that single clash, the creature's skills completely eclipsed his own. While Ronan wavered, the shadow transformed into a blur and zipped past him. Ronan collapsed to his knees, his grip on La Mancha nearly failing. The phantom gave one icy look before departing. Refusing to yield, Ronan dragged himself up and let out a guttural scream. "Why? Based on how my family looked at you, you must be my father, yet you attacked them and even cursed me personally. Do you even deserve that title?" Suddenly chaotic crimson mana erupted around Ronan. Fueled by pure desperation, he funneled every ounce of power into one final suicidal lunge. This time the specter didn't defend, it simply shut its eyes. Ronan slashed without mercy and took the entity's head. "Fine, I'll find the answers on my own. Now vanish from my soul." As the darkness faded, Ronan's mind snapped back to the real world. He gasped, trying to shake off the lingering adrenaline. Suddenly, a familiar kind voice drifted from behind. "Welcome back to the living, Ronan." Was the trip rough? Ronan spun around dazed. He saw an elderly man, wearing Professor Secret's signature robes. Shaken by the truth, Ronan shouted, Wait, are you the actual professor? Why do you look so old all of a sudden? Is this because of the curse breaking? Secret just chuckled softly. Don't overthink it. It's fine. But Ronan, do you feel that change inside you? Only then did Ronan settle down to check his body. Glancing back, he was stunned to see massive waves of mana radiating from the professor. I knew you were special from day one, but now it seems. You're even stronger than I predicted. Secret beamed with pride. So you can finally feel the mana flow, meaning the ritual worked. Ronan then recounted his journey through the mental void. Secret took meticulous notes on every detail. According to your story, the curse fed on buried memories you'd long forgotten to anchor itself. It seems your father was the culprit, yet you claimed neither you nor your sister remembered your folks, like they were wiped from your history. Ronan agreed. The face was a blur, but based on my family's reaction, it had to be him. Strangely, even while attacking, he radiated a crushing sadness. Secret sipped his coffee, pondering. Then it clicks. Your father didn't just lock your mana, he altered your mind. In doing so, some of his own thoughts leaked into you. It's a common glitch with high-level memory spells. That's why your mental world manifested through his perspective. This time, regarding that sudden power surge, it was your suppressed consciousness breaking through. The curse wavered, allowing your true self to awaken. That's how you regained your senses. Ronan stared at his hands as ethereal lights danced across his fingertips. So this glow is mana. Secret nodded. Currently, you're just a witness. But to actually command magic like a seasoned pro, you've still got 2 massive curses to shatter. It's going to be a long, grueling journey. These seals were forged by terrifyingly elite ancient sorcerers. With that, Secret snapped his notebook shut. Go recover for now. I'll signal you when the time is right. Ronan began to stand, but his entire body suddenly froze. Somehow Secret had already shifted back into his juvenile form. Seeing Ronan's confusion, Secret gave a helpless shrug. My own physical state is just as messy. But Ronan, listen close. I can sense the absolute chaos inside your mind right now. Pull yourself together. Don't let those ghosts of the past keep you shackled forever. Treasure what's right in front of you and the path ahead. Absorbing those words, Ronan rose and offered Professor Secret a deep, respectful bow. Thank you, Professor. I truly mean it. Meanwhile, over at the Perukia mine, news of the rock giant's assault had reached high places. Duke Yujev Sheripan's father arrived at the wreckage. He stared up at the monolithic stone titan, the same beast that nearly crushed Ronan in one strike. A flash of genuine shock crossed his face. This stone behemoth was even more imposing than I imagined. But beyond that surprise, Yujev was hit with pure curiosity. How could a first-year student possibly tank a monster this lethal? While the Duke reflected, his subordinate stepped up to report on the mine's reconstruction progress. This was Norton Yujev's elite shield and the commander of House Grantia's knights, reporting, Your Grace. Perukia's restoration is moving fast. We'll have the operations back online within 7 days. We've also been hunting the culprit behind this chaos. Sadly, we've hit a total dead end. They vanished like smoke. But Philion Academy did reveal the identity of our mysterious savior. I've located the student who halted the catastrophe. Shall we pay him a visit? Yujev gave a slow, measured nod, anticipation gleaming in his eyes. Let's meet this young legend. Suddenly, the dormant rock giant's eyes ignited with a menacing crimson glow. Its colossal frame lurched forward into a combat stance. Norton's instinct screamed as he reacted instantly. Step back, Your Grace. Leave this overgrown pebble to me and the Knight Order. But Yujev simply raised a hand, his voice chillingly calm. No need. We're on a tight schedule. Right. The moment he spoke, a blinding azure light exploded from his eyes as he gripped his blade. An overwhelming blue sword aura erupted. Even the mindless golem seemed to recoil in pure terror. It sensed the god-tier power packed into that single stance. Then in a heartbeat, under one devastating slash, the giant's massive body disintegrated into a million stone shards. Yujev casually sheathed his sword, his expression as unbothered as ever. Let's move. It's time to meet Philion's little superstar. Meanwhile, Ronan was back in his dorm exhausted. A sudden, aggressive pounding echoed at his door. Seeing Norton standing there, Ronan snapped. What do you want? Norton's face contorted with rage, his voice dripping with pure disdain. You've got some nerve acting this cocky. Do you even realize who you're talking to? Only then did Ronan truly scan the intruder. His heart skipped. Norton's mana felt absolutely vile. It carried a distorted, freakish energy he'd definitely felt before. Just as the vibe turned lethal, Yujev stepped in, patting Norton's shoulder to back him down. That's enough, Norton. We're the ones who barged in unannounced. We were the rude ones here. Yujev bowed slightly. Forgive my guard's lack of manners. If you've got a moment, I'd love to chat. Realizing he was facing the head of House Grantia, Ronan immediately dropped his guard. He invited the duo inside. Once settled, Yujev placed an ornate sword scabbard on the table. Ronan looked confused. It's just a scabbard. Did the Duke really need to deliver this himself? Yujev took a calm sip of tea. Master Dylan was incredibly insistent about this, reaching you. I've never seen that old man so intense, especially regarding the Grancia and Perugia pact. Think of us as brothers in arms. My own blade Perud was also birthed from Master Dylan's legendary forge. Yujev revealed an identity token bearing the family's ancient crest. Truthfully, I am the one who owes you a debt of gratitude. You rescued Perugia and shielded our family's legacy there. The sudden revelation left Ronan absolutely floored. If the token Sherry Pan gave his sister could buy a city, then Duke Yujev's crest was easily worth 3. Yujev took another calm, refined sip of his tea. Maria and Asher should have received their rewards by now. I truly hope the gifts are to their liking. Feeling the pressure, Ronan awkwardly assured the Duke there was no cause for concern. He envisioned those two looking absolutely stunned with gratitude the second they saw those treasures. After some polite banter, Yujev's tea hit the table as his voice turned ice-cold and serious. Let's pivot. How much do you actually know about the puppets pulling the strings behind this chaos? Mind-sharing. Before the words even landed, a suffocating tidal wave of magical pressure surged from Yujev. I am dying to meet these pathetic cowards lurking in the shadows. That crushing weight left Ronan reeling. This was the true terrifying power of the Grancy House Lord. Swallowing his nerves, Ronan finally spoke up. You might know some things, but those lunatics are way more unhinged than you realize. The second he said that, Norton's face began to twitch violently. Ronan instantly knew something was dead wrong. Norton had been a literal statue since they walked in. But the moment those rats were mentioned, a foul, sinister energy began bleeding from his pores. It was the exact same vibe as Edward and Cyrilla. Pure, unfiltered trash. As Ronan froze, Yujev looked over confused. Ronan, why the sudden silence? Are you okay? Ronan's heart hammered against his ribs in total disbelief. Yujev was a top-tier powerhouse on the continent, yet he could not sense this obvious corruption. Was Ronan the only one seeing this? To test his theory, the young warrior pushed further. Your Grace, are you familiar with Creo, the cult that worships that celestial star giant? Norton's eyes flared with murderous intent as that grotesque aura surged and thickened around him. Still, Yujev noticed nothing. He simply asked with total composure, You found all this yourself. I had no clue such a cult was festering within our empire. Ronan's lips curled into a savage smirk. I broke the 2 I caught. They were easy. After I started taking limbs, they could not stop talking. Those losers actually started sobbing, begging for mercy. Truly pathetic. Want me to describe the gore in detail, Your Grace? Yujev quickly held up a hand. No need. I will get the rest from Richard's prison files later. I would hate to lose my appetite before dinner. Ronan went silent after that. But he already had his proof. Norton was barely holding back that dark energy from exploding out of him. After that little test, Ronan was dead, certain Norton was a traitor. Now that the trap was set, he respectfully escorted the Duke out of the room. Your Grace, please handle your business tomorrow. Don't worry about me. I will write a full report, especially the parts involving you. Ronan put massive weight on those words. He shot a passing glance at Norton. The message was loud and clear. Soon night blanketed the estate. Ronan lay in bed faking sleep. Suddenly, a shadow ghosted through the darkness toward him. Norton's eyes glinted with malice as he drove his blade straight into the center of Ronan's bed. But the steel hit nothing but air. Ronan's voice suddenly echoed from the ceiling, dripping with mockery. I knew you would take the bait. Good to finally meet you, the third rat of the Creo cult. Norton's face morphed into a mask of shock. He whirled around to strike, but Ronan just pointed lazily. Look behind you first. I invited a very special guest, just for your execution. Norton followed his gaze and paralyzed in fear. Sherry Pan sat nearby, eyes blazing with righteous fury. Norton, you better start talking before I tear you apart. But Norton was not planning on explaining anything. Instead, stomping hard, he unleashed an explosion of obsidian chains that erupted from the earth around him. The dark links whipped outward, crushing the atmosphere. Ronan's body felt like lead as he braced. His instincts screamed this was the suffocating weight of Norton's true aura. There was zero reaction time. Norton lunged at Sherry Pan blade, flashing with lethal intent. A sickening layer of mock sympathy laced his words. Such a pity, young master. I truly hoped it wouldn't end this way, but Ronan ruined everything. He's the reason for this mess. Luckily, you still haven't mastered your aura control yet, have you? With that soft heart, you'd never risk using that reckless sword style with innocent bystanders nearby. Sherry Pan's jaw clenched with bone-cracking force, his sword hand trembling from pure, unadulterated rage. This power is insane. Have you been playing weak? My family treated you like blood. When did you start selling us out? Norton merely smirked, shifting his grip with a calculated flick. He parried Sherry Pan effortlessly. His voice was a cold, absolute chill. Since day one, I was never your loyal hound. Channeling every drop of mana, he prepared to end them. He was going for the kill shot. Sherry Pan's expression froze, his voice eerily steady. That's all the proof I needed. Ronan, you're up. Go wild. The air shifted. Ronan materialized instantly, clashing against Norton's death blow. He spared a dry, annoyed glance back. "You're such a moron. You actually stalled a fight just to hear him confess, totally unhinged." Norton's jaw dropped. How did Ronan recover and close the gap so fast? The shock caused Norton to hesitate an opening Sherry Pan wasn't about to waste. He swung with monstrous force, sending a violent wave of aura through the ground. Norton retreated. He threw himself back narrowly, dodging the slash. This wasn't supposed to happen. Even under his aura suppression, these two were still swinging with peak-tier power. Realizing the tide had turned, Norton gnashed his teeth and bolted. He had to vanish. Their explosive clash alerted Philion Academy staff. If the professors arrived, he was finished. But Norton didn't get far. Sherry Pan appeared above him, voice dripping with venom. "You're right, Norton. My control over my father's secret arts is far from perfect. But since you were dumb enough to corner us here, there aren't any innocents nearby. Just you traitor." Right then, Sherry Pan's mana reached a terrifying boiling point. Hundreds of razor-sharp wind blades fused into a roaring vortex aimed at the traitor. Grancia family's ultimate move, Storm Sword. Norton's face went pale as he raised his guard. But Storm Sword was on another level. It shredded his defenses and engulfed him. When the dust settled, Norton was broken. His mana circuits were shredded, barely clinging to life. Ronan strolled over, arms crossed and a smug grin. "Looks like you kept him alive. Though at this rate, I doubt this loser will even survive the trip back. He's cooked." Sherry Pan didn't look relieved. The weight of betrayal sat heavy. A traitor, for years. "I need to alert House Grancia immediately. This goes deep. I'm leaving the cleanup to you." Without another word, he sprinted away. Ronan watched him go, grumbling a few colorful curses. But before he could finish his rant, a shimmer of light warped the air. Out stepped Nayberger and the headmaster, looking frantic. They demanded to know what happened. Ronan turned to answer but stopped dead. Nayberger was standing there in her pajamas. They were covered in tiny snake patterns. She looked adorable, yet her face promised pain. Sensing danger, Ronan swallowed his jokes and gave a thumbs up, piling on fake compliments. To keep things safe, he looked them both in the eye and demanded a repeat. Ayud is a total psycho. They looked confused as hell, but they actually said it. Only then did Ronan finally relax and lay out every detail of the betrayal. The headmaster's face turned grim. To think a noble house like Grancia was compromised. To think Kryko vermin had already infested the ranks. "It's worse than I feared. Because of you, Ronan." The Empire barely dodged a total meltdown. Being hyped up by the headmaster made Ronan scratch his head in total awkwardness. He shared most of the story without holding back, but he kept one vital card hidden. The fact that he could see the twisted mana pulsing inside Norton. He knew that if that secret leaked, he and everyone he cared about would be Kryko's next targets. This situation is about to ignite a massive Imperial purge with House Grancy leading the charge. So, relax. After that stunt at the Perukia Forge, the Empire is officially in your debt. As Philion's headmaster, I need to reward you properly, Ronan. What's your wish? The moment those words dropped, Ronan's energy spiked, and a fire lit up in his eyes. He'd been plotting this for a long time. So, at the crack of dawn, Ronan slapped a recruitment flyer onto the academy board. The whole point of this club was to scout elite talent to face future monster commanders. As the first club ever cleared for field training, a massive crowd swarmed the notice. The second it went up. But strangely, after 2 full days, Ronan's roster was still a total ghost town. Except for Bram, who was already on board. The catch was simple: applicants had to survive a spar with Ronan, while signing a death waiver on the spot. Now, the whole school thought 10 lives wouldn't be enough to survive joining his squad. Staring at his empty booth, Ronan could only let out a heavy sigh. Just as he was about to pack it in, a soft feminine voice drifted through the air. Ronan snapped his head up. In the corner of the square, a figure in a heavy winter cloak appeared, where no one had been a second ago. The fact that he didn't sense her at all put him on high alert. Masking his caution with a bright smile, he asked if she was there to sign up. The girl slowly raised a hand and lowered her hood, revealing a pale porcelain face. But her eyes weren't on Ronan. Instead, she was locked onto Sitha. In a hushed voice, she asked, "If I join, can I pet him?" Ronan flashed a grin and didn't miss a beat. "Of course, Sitha is my permanent shadow. Join us and you can pet him all day." The girl's cheeks turned bright red, her love for the creature plain to see. Ronan pointed toward a nearby training golem. "I haven't even caught your name yet. As for the test, it's easy. Just blast that dummy with one of your best moves." Without a second thought, she raised her hand. Instantly, dark mana began swirling violently around her. "I'm Ophelia, a 3rd year from the magic department." Audrey, who was helping out, nearly choked in surprise, because Ophelia was channeling pure dark element magic. It's notoriously one of the hardest types to master, yet Ophelia's control was flawless. But Ronan noticed a much deeper detail. He saw that, laced within the shadows in her hand, was a trace of pure blood magic. Then Ophelia struck. A massive spectral claw tore through the air with lethal speed, slamming into the training dummy. With a deafening crash, 3 deep scars were ripped into the golem's metal frame. Before Ronan could even comment, sensing his realization, Ophelia's voice echoed directly in his mind. "So, you really saw it. Then please keep my secret. Let's talk somewhere private. I have questions for you as well." Ronan gave a subtle nod of understanding. Soon he was following Ophelia to a quiet spot away from the square. The moment they were alone, Ophelia eagerly gathered Sitha into her arms, looking completely overjoyed. "I can't believe this little guy actually devours ambient mana. Fantasy species are truly built different." Ronan shifted the vibe, questioning her with a calm but sharp gaze. "You're pretty impressive too. Last I checked, vampires had vanished from the Empire ages ago." But Ophelia didn't play coy. Stroking Sitha's fur, she explained softly, "Not everyone left. A few of us stayed behind in the shadows. We just stay hidden to avoid any drama." Hearing that, Ronan pushed further. "Then why risk your cover just to join my club? Was it really just because of Sitha?" Ophelia met his eyes with total honesty. "Exactly. The moment I saw Sitha, I felt the blood magic of my kin." Ronan suddenly put the pieces together. It explained how Seda could gorge on energy through blood so effortlessly. Since his first breath, the power surging within him was a pure-blooded vampire trait. Ophelia stood paralyzed by the revelation. Normally, mastering blood arts demands 3 to 5 years of hellish training, but Seda had conquered it as an infant, radiating immense sanguine pressure. As she spoke, her fascination with Seda grew into an obsession. Ophelia then looked at Ronan with hauntingly desperate eyes. She whispered, "I only came to stay near the boy, but may I ask one more thing? Will Seda help my research?" "Agree, and I'll commit fully to every club mission." Ronan read her soul, saw no threat to Seda, and gave a slow nod. The next morning, Ronan led the squad into the Baden Mountains for a trial by fire. This range was the Empire's dead zone, a place where death lurked behind every tree. The moment they arrived, the sheer mana in the air left Maria breathless and stunned. Meanwhile, Ronan narrowed his gaze, scanning the valley with cold intensity. At the mountain's base lay a sprawling beastman stronghold. Bram's jaw dropped. Beastmen built a fortress like that. Ronan didn't flinch. Instead, he warned them coldly. "In lawless borderlands like this, beastmen always leave a trail of blood. They're just a village now, but they breed like a plague. Soon they'll swarm this entire mountain range. When they do, every human town nearby will be slaughtered." Turning to the group, Ronan's voice was sharp. "Our mission: wipe out this nest before they can spread." Asher froze at the command. "But there are hundreds down there. Can just a few of us actually handle a massacre like that?" Ronan's eyes flickered back to the village. "Relax. Low-level beastmen are fodder. As long as we avoid the regional alphas, the ogres, this is a walk in the park." But as they geared up, a serene voice drifted from the shadows behind them. "Your heart is in the right place, but this path leads to a dead end. The timing is all wrong." Suddenly, Ronan's survival instincts screamed. He hadn't felt this elf's presence at all, meaning the stranger's power level was absolute. Noticing his tension, the elf offered a gentle, mysterious smile. "Peace. I'm just a mountain priest serving the divine soul, Sinal. I mean no harm. But before we talk, let's find a more secure location." Still, Ronan didn't drop his guard. In a heartbeat, he had La Mancha pressed against the elf's throat. "Sorry, but I've dealt with too many snakes lately to trust a friendly face. Do me a solid, repeat after me. Ayut is a total piece of trash." Shalantai looked baffled, but eventually muttered the insult word for word. After the blasphemy, he hung his head in genuine embarrassment. "As a man of the gods, this is a first. In over 1,000 years of solitude, I've never uttered such filth. Truly shameful." The group stood paralyzed. This elf had been walking the earth since before the Empire's birth. Ronan's battle-ready crew was completely rattled by Shalantai's casual bombshell, but Ronan quickly refocused his mind, snapping back to the elf's earlier warning. He demanded, "You said wiping out those beasts is a mistake. Why?" At that, Shalantai's face hardened with grim gravity. "The beastmen's behavior has turned sinister. They aren't nocturnal, yet they prowl these peaks every single night. Even the territorial ogres are migrating toward the outer borders, driven by something unseen. Every omen points to a looming catastrophe." As he spoke, Shalantai gestured lightly. In an instant, reality warped and twisted around the group. When they blinked, a colossal ancient palace loomed over them. Asher's brain short-circuited, because a concealment spell this powerful would baffle the Empire's top magic professors. Soon, Shalantai led them toward a massive, mysterious monolith. "The temple has plenty of room. Rest wherever you like." But Ronan wasn't there for a nap. He stepped forward, eyes burning with urgency. "Mr. Shalanti, where is the Eye of Curse located?" Shalanti's gaze sharpened, reading him like an open book. "Is this about the darkness festering inside you? I knew I sensed a lethal energy lurking in your shadow. This conversation requires absolute privacy. Walk with me." Ronan followed the old man to a secluded courtyard. As he examined him, Shalanti spoke softly. "You're no typical academy brat, are you, Ronan?" Ronan fumbled for an answer, his knuckles whitening as he gripped his blade, La Mancha, out of pure instinct. Shalanti ignored the tension, sliding a steaming cup of tea across the table. Your spirit is a raging storm. You need to chill. Drink. It'll ground you. Ronan took the cup, but his mind raced with suspicion. Was this peace or a trap? Just as doubt took hold, a heavenly fragrance wafted from the brew. Suddenly, Ronan's entire world came to a screeching halt. Massive webs of glowing mana circuits erupted into view, pulsing with a clarity he'd never experienced in his life. It was like seeing the universe in 4K for the first time. Shalanti just watched him unfazed, knowing exactly what was happening. That's a spiritual herb so legendary it's practically a myth, even within the deepest magic ley lines, he explained coolly. It's designed to blast through blocked mana channels. Though honestly, it shouldn't be hitting you this hard. The fact that one sip triggered this high-voltage reaction, yeah, that's definitely the curse talking back to you. I'll whip up more for you. Keep chugging this stuff and your power levels will go through the roof. Then the old man went dead silent. The temperature in the room seemed to drop as his voice turned cold. Listen close. Stop trying to rip that curse out with the eye. When that relic purges darkness, it demands a price. It feasts on your very life force. Use it once, fine, but lean on it too much and you're cooked. It'll literally end you. Surely you weren't that clueless. The realization hit Ronan like a freight train. He was speechless. He'd been playing with fire and didn't even know it. Seeing the kid's shell-shocked face, Shalanti softened his tone. I get the rush, Ronan, but when you're sprinting toward a cliff, that's exactly when you need to hit the brakes. One misstep leads to a permanent game over. Ronan took a deep breath and nodded, finally letting the gravity sink in. His death grip on La Mancha finally eased. Secreta had warned him about this too. Patience was the only way to break his chains. It was a slow game. Looking at Shalanti's serene face, Ronan realized he'd been acting like a desperate rookie lately. There was a weirdly familiar vibe about the guy. Weird because in his past life, Shalanti was a total stranger. Decisions made. Ronan stopped playing coy, raised his tea and gave a genuine thanks for the heads up, old man. I've been rushing because the world is crawling with those insane zealots. You know the ones. The Star Chasers. Ronan downed the brew in one gulp, completely missing the fact that Shalanti's face had suddenly gone pitch black. Later, under the creeping twilight, Shalanti stood alone before a strange stone monument, his mind a mess of grief. If those fanatics are back, do I just sit on my hands again? Or is this boy the answer I've been seeking? Just as he was spiraling into his memories, a familiar voice broke the silence. So what's the deal with the rock? Ronan asked from behind. Instantly, a strange divine fire ignited in Shalanti's eyes as he looked at the statue. This is the image of my lord Sinel. Once every millennium, our order sends 1,000 vessels to the Holy Land. 1,000 statues to Dakne, the Empire's sacred ground, all to carry out the will of the heavens. Most crumble within centuries under the brutal storms, but every once in a long while, one soul survives. A few legendary stones endure the full 1,000 years, a testament to a will that refuses to break. The true essence of Sinel doesn't live in the stone, but in the unbreakable spirit that dwells within it. A faint melancholy smile touched his lips. I still remember the day we brought this divine statue home together. My brothers and I carried it. Now, I'm the only one left to keep the flame of this faith alive. Faith is a heavy burden when the God you serve remains silent for an entire lifetime. It's exhausting. Waiting for an answer that never comes can break anyone. Believe me, I've been on the edge of quitting. I wanted to walk away, to live for myself for once. But every time I tried to leave, I felt it. A whisper in my soul telling me to stay. A feeling that my job here wasn't finished yet. That one day, the power within this stone would become the foundation that saves this entire world. He laughed softly, patting Ronan's shoulder with a sudden burst of genuine delight. And I think that moment is finally here. By dawn, the whole squad was fueling up on that legendary brew. The air was supercharged with dense mana, instantly boosting everyone's magical potential to new heights. Ronan spent the following days trekking up the peaks with Shalantai hunting for rare herbs and secrets. Soon Ronan prepared to depart, intending to wipe out the Beastman village before returning to the academy. However, Shalantai was gripped by a dark premonition. The monster's behavior was far too erratic. Their movements are chillingly unnatural. For your own safety, I urge you to stay a while longer. Ronan just flashed a confident grin and shook his head. Trust us, Shalantai. We can handle it. Besides, didn't you say their strength hasn't increased despite their strange actions? The rest of the crew chimed in, promising to stay sharp. Seeing their resolve, Shalantai sighed. Ronan scratched his head, adding, more importantly, our training deadline is breathing down our necks. We need to report back so the academy knows we haven't kicked the bucket yet. Unable to change their minds, Shalantai wove a shimmering enchantment around the group. This spell grants you passage through the temple's barrier. If things get dicey, retreat here immediately. Before long, Ronan led the squad toward the outskirts of the Beastman territory. They arrived to find the savages gloating over piles of blood-stained loot and stolen treasures. It was grim proof that the nearby settlements had already fallen victim to their raids. Ronan's eyes turned cold. He signaled for silence as Asher prepped his telekinetic strike. Like a tactical drop, Asher lowered Maria and Bram onto the battlefield with perfect precision. The beastmen let out furious roars, but Maria and Bram were already streaks of lethal light. They tore through the ranks like a hurricane, leaving only carnage in their wake. From above, Asher rained down massive boulders, crushing any monster that tried to escape. Under their flawless coordination, the entire village was neutralized in a matter of minutes. But looking at the bodies, Asher's heart sank, fearing such violence would eventually invite karma. While Ronan comforted him, secretly planning even tougher missions, Sitha's tiny paw suddenly nudged his hand. The little spirit pointed toward a massive tree nearby, indicating something hidden in the shadows. The group froze in shock. Bound to the trunk was a battered, bloodied elf. Ronan rushed to slice the ropes while Sitha's paws glowed with soft emerald healing energy. As the elf stirred, she sensed the powerful magic radiating from the group and gasped. Terror washed over her face. Before she could speak, she coughed up a mouthful of dark blood. She grabbed Ronan's collar with a trembling, desperate grip, her voice a ragged, frantic whisper. "I feel Lord Shalantai's aura. Please, take me to him before it's too late. The fanatics are coming. If we don't hurry, Shalantai's life is forfeit." Her body went limp as she fell back into the shadows of unconsciousness. Without a second thought, Ronan hoisted her up and sprinted back toward the temple. Shalantai met them at the gates, startled by their sudden and chaotic return. "We found her in that den of beasts," Ronan panted. "She's desperate to see you." Shalantai's gaze drifted to the unconscious woman, and his heart seemingly stopped. His face drained of color as he gently took her from Ronan's arms. After stabilizing her, he looked at Ronan with a